All right, we are just about to get started. Just going to go live in the groups here. Hopefully that works this time. Hey, it's going to work. Yay. Seems like every time I try to go live here, it's one of the groups doesn't work. But I think we're nope, maybe not. It was working. All right. I am excited. Of course, we are just about to start our virtual book tour. The virtual book tour is where you get to connect with all of the authors of our brand new book that launched today. I'm so excited. And there we go. It's called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. And this is something that we have all worked so hard on. This is a collaboration between myself and 20 other experts in things like neurolinguistic programming, coaching, trauma release, hypnotherapy, health and fitness, all kinds of wonderful experts in this book. And, this book is, for me, this is and I've done a lot of these, as you may know if you follow me. But this book for me was particularly special because I got to share some things that have really helped me in my life. And I'm always sharing things that are helpful in my life, but this is a particular topic that, especially lately, especially this last 4 years or so, that I've noticed that that most people really seem to need in their life, and a lot of people seem to be missing. My topic, for example, is on resilience. And there are many other topics throughout the book. One of the beautiful things about doing a collaboration book like this is that every author brings their own tips, their own tricks, of course, but really their own flavor, their own voice, and very often their own stories to the book, which I think makes these really special. I think the first book that ever was kind of like this was Chicken Soup for the Soul. And, a lot of people thought that Chicken Soup for the Soul was going to be a massive disaster, a failure. 140 book publishers turned down Chicken Soup for the Soul. And still these days, a lot of publishers don't publish these kinds of books. And that's one of the reasons why we started Authority Alliance Publishing, is to help thought leaders and their followers to, get their voices out and really transform the world, right? That's our number one value, is transformation. And so this is a project that we've all been working on for several months now, and each person contributed a chapter to the book. And again, one of the things I love is that, the beauty of that is that each chapter has its own voice. Each chapter has its own message. Each chapter has its own tips and tricks, because we all, even though the majority of us in the book are trained in NLP, for example, we all have our own different backgrounds. We all have our own different stories. We all have our own different takes on NLP. A lot of people don't really think about that. You could have two people that are trained in NLP, and two people can have different takes on the same thing, or different takes on different things that, maybe the other person wouldn't elaborate on it. But so I'm really excited. So this is the book right here. It's called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. We are on a mission this weekend to make an NLP book #1 on all of Amazon. And I think we can do it. We haven't done it in past ones, but we've come close. We've come really close. And so I know if we get your help this time, that we can do it. So how do you help us? It's really simple. The way that you help us is, whoops, and I'm in the wrong folder. Let me find there we go. I got to click on the right banner. So the new book, again, is called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. The launch is today, started at midnight Eastern time, and it goes through tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Pacific. And so as long as you get it before tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Pacific, and the book is only $6.89, and it's an amazing book. I mean, a lot of people are out there charging $20 for books these days. $6.89. It's the cheapest we could make it for launch, because we didn't want price to be the factor that gets in anybody's way. So it's absolutely the lowest it could possibly go. We actually don't even make a penny off the book. That's how low we made it, right? Only the printers and the distributors and publishers get to make the money on that, right? Not the publisher, because we're the publisher, but the distributors and the printers. But that's as low as it can go, $6.89. And for that, you get an amazing book, which would be a great deal in and of itself. But you also get $1,000 in gifts from the authors. It's actually, I think, more than $1,000 worth of gifts. Each of us have contributed a gift to the book launch. For example, I made a course, a brand new course that nobody's ever seen. I just recorded it a couple of weeks ago, and that's called Step Out of Your Comfort Zone: How to Embrace Change to Achieve Greatness, right? So it's really tied into my chapter. And the whole point of this course is not only to teach you why you want to step out of your comfort zone. Of course, I think a lot of people know why, but to teach you how. And I actually give step-by-step instructions about how to get out of your comfort zone. I even have in there a questionnaire, if you will, that has the top 60 limiting beliefs that hold people back from taking action and stepping out of their comfort zones, and a step-by-step process for releasing those beliefs. So if you've always wanted more out of your life and you haven't known how to get it, you just feel like maybe there's something holding you back, right? And you're not sure what to do about it. You're like, I know I should go out and talk to people, or I know I should go out and this or that, but you don't find yourself doing it, right? A lot of times that is the unconscious mind. There's something deep inside the unconscious mind, very often a limiting belief. And so this is the top 60 limiting beliefs, and then a step-by-step process for you to get rid of each one. And as you get rid of each one of those limiting beliefs that you have, then that makes you more readily available to step out of your comfort zone. Everything that I have in my life, and listen, I've got people who come to me all the time and they're like, "Oh, Michael, you're so lucky." Right? My life has nothing to do with luck. The first 25 of my years were dictated by luck, and let me tell you, it was bad, right? Then I learned NLP, and now it's been 26 years, almost 27 years of my life have been a dream, right? And a big reason for that is because I learned how to step out of my comfort zone. I wouldn't be where I am right now if I hadn't learned how to do that. And so here's how you get the book. Go to www.innerrevolutionbook.com. Now listen, the only way that you can get the $1,000 in gifts is to go to innerrevolutionbook.com. I know sometimes people are like, "Oh, but I have my favorite bookstore. I want to go to that one." No, the only way you can get the gifts by supporting us on launch is to go to innerrevolutionbook.com. Click on the green button that says "Get the Book," and there are a very simple 3-step instructions there for you to get the book. And when you follow those instructions and you buy the book before tomorrow, December 8th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific, then you'll get the gifts. And so we're really, really excited about this. This is, it is no little feat to write a book, especially a book with this much substance, right? This is a great size book here. Everybody who contributed to this book really put their heart and soul into it. And most of these people who wrote this book were brand new authors. They didn't know how to write a book. And so part of the process of this over the last few months was us teaching them the process of how to write the book. And listen, anybody can be a great author. And most people don't know that, right? One of the things we teach in NLP is that anybody that you see who has a form of excellence, we tend to look at that person and go, "Oh, that person's special. I could never be like that person." But in actuality, everybody who does excellence in any field whatsoever is following processes. And if we can figure out what those processes are, we call it modeling in NLP, right? If you could figure out what those processes are and then document them, you could teach them to other people, and then other people will be able to get the same results as the experts, right? And that's really the core of NLP. And so, this is our method when doing this as well. Even if we have some authors who are seasoned authors and some who are new, but everybody got the benefit of knowing how to be an excellent author by following the model. And so, I've read the book. It's absolutely amazing. Even me, I've been in NLP now I've been in personal development since I was 11. My very first personal development book was The Silva Mind Control Method, which I bought in a used bookstore for 25 cents as an 11-year-old because I thought it was about controlling other people's minds. Hey, I was 11, So that was my first personal development book. And I've been into, hypnotherapy since 1998, so 26 years now. Been into NLP since shortly after that. And I'll tell you, even with that history, over a quarter century of studying NLP, I still got nuggets out of this book, right? And so if I can get great value out of this, you can get great value out of it as well. So it's an amazing book. Here's how you get it. Go to www.innerrevolution.com. Innerrevolutionbook.com. Again, the book is called Inner Revolution: Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. We're going to spend the next 3 hours here interviewing the first half of the authors. So I'll be interviewing 10 authors today, tomorrow we're going to be back at the same time, 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is noon Eastern time, or one of the others if you're in between there. And I'll be interviewing the second half of the authors, including one of our couples who wrote the book as well, which is going to be fun, interviewing two people at the same time. So I'm really excited about it. So make sure that not only do you get the book, but also make sure that you're back here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Wherever you're watching this right now, we're going to be live there tomorrow as well. So if you're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, we will be live. YouTube's probably the easiest. If you want to share it with anybody, by the way, the YouTube channel is the easiest way to share it, because people don't have to have an account to get on YouTube. So if you're like, oh, I've got somebody who really, really, really needs to see this, book.com, they need a little bit of dose of personal development in their life, then you can send them here, innerrevolutionbook.com/tour. That'll take you over to the website, which, by the way, the website, absolutely beautiful, designed by our graphic designer, Hope, who also designed the book cover. If you go to the website, innerrevolutionbook.com, you can check out what the book is about. There's a description here of what's in the book. You can click to buy the book, get the book now. Got a little bit about the authors. And then if you scroll up and you want to know more about the authors, there's a link here at the top of the page. It says authors. You can click that and find a little bit about each of the authors here in the book as well. So our launch, again, is from now until 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, which is Sunday, December 7th. And we're giving away $1,000 in gifts for you to get this book. And we're really excited about it. Now, again, the way to get it is to go to the website, innerrevolutionbook.com. Make sure that you do that, right? We're going to direct you over to Amazon, but there are certain steps that you have to take in order to claim the $1,000 in gifts. And those steps are only on innerrevolutionbook.com. So make sure that you go there first, click on the green button that says get it now, and then that will give you the instructions. And so in about 4 minutes now, or 3 minutes now, we're going to start bringing on our authors. If you have already gotten your book, drop a comment if you've already gotten it. I know several people, as I try and type and talk at the same time, I know several people already since midnight last night have gotten the book. They've posted in our groups. Drop a comment here on this video if you've gotten your book. We'd love to know who and how many are already getting it. Which is always fun. And if you have any questions or comments for the authors, drop it in a comment here, and we'll be able to see your comments and give you a shout out. All right. Kayla, are we doing good? We got people loading into our green room here in StreamYard. I can see the smiling faces getting ready to come on. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And by the way, if you are a coach, hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, consultant, thought leader, and you've got an audience of people who would love to write a book with you, right? Just like we did here, a collaboration book. That's exactly what our jam is at Authority Alliance Publishing. Reach out to us. Let us know if you've got the audience for something like this and you want to have your own book with your own audience in it as well. And, a nice book launch like this and the whole process. We cover everything. We teach how to write the chapters. We teach how to create the gifts. Everything is provided for you. Reach out to us at authorityalliance.co. That is our publishing website. And we would love to talk to you about that. So again, our new book, it's called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. This is a collaboration between me and 20 other experts in things like neurolinguistic programming, coaching, hypnotherapy, trauma release, health, fitness. Really runs the gamut of people who are experts in this book. The book is now launched. And so today's the day. We've been talking about it for like 6 weeks. I'm sure people are like, I can't wait for the book to launch. We are finally here. The launch event is until tomorrow, December 8th at 11:59 p.m. Make sure that you get the book before then to get the $1,000 in gifts. And here's the thing, right? We're talking about the $1,000 in launch gifts. What I don't really talk about much during the launch, but there's also $1,000 worth of gifts inside the book, different gifts, right? At the end of every chapter where the bio is, every author has provided a gift for reading their chapter as well. So really, for $6.89, you're getting about $2,000 worth of gifts. The book itself is certainly worth $6.89, but the gifts, of course, that's our enticement for you to help us and help us hit bestseller, right? We want to get an NLP book to #1 bestseller on all of Amazon this weekend. So go to innerrevolutionbook.com and help us out. All right, I am excited to bring on our first author. And our author is Mistral Echevarria. And so Mistral is, and I need to bring my notes up because I forgot my notes. Mistral was one of the first people to jump into this book, and very excited. Sorry, as I get into my notes here real quick. I knew I forgot something this morning. Like, wait a minute.
Those days.
All right. So Mistral is a somatic energy healer, a hypnotist, and intuitive life coach with over 17 years of experience and creator of Practical Woo. I love the woo. Blending strategy with shamanic wisdom. She helps visionary perfectionists and people pleasers ready to pursue long-held dreams. Her clients leave with a renewed sense of confidence and clarity, feeling motivated and exceeding their limitations. In her free time, Mistral enjoys biking in New York City, dancing, and planning scuba adventures. Now, in her chapter, The Little Mouse's Bliss, Mistral shares her journey through depression, comparing it to a mouse struggling to keep a lid on a boiling pot. She explores the emotional turmoil following her brother's death and the transformative experience of studying massage therapy in Costa Rica. By shedding perfectionist masks and embracing vulnerability, she discovers ways to manage emotions and build resistance. The chapter concludes with a metaphor of sending love to herself and others, highlighting the journey of self-acceptance and emotional freedom. Welcome, Mistral.
Hi, so excited to be here with you, Michael.
Yes. So tell me, what was it that inspired you to write this chapter?
So this was a story that it kind of came out of me a few years back. And then when I was trying to wrap my head around what am I going to write for the chapter, right? That infinite writer's block. I just kept coming back to that story over and over again. And it felt like a little different because it's like a story, but it just meant so much to me. And then there's that twist at the end where things kind of come together and there's that beautiful visualization that was so impactful to me. And then that's what my free gift is that I created a guided meditation that takes you on that exact journey. That is probably one of my favorite meditations that I've actually made to this date. And so, yeah, that's why I did it. And it was, I think there's something powerful in a lot of what I do with my clients is about like honoring, acknowledging, and like witnessing the tough times, but then also finding out as you learn how to manage your emotions, as you learn how to like honor yourself and listen to your body, that you're able to handle the tough things as much as you're better able to enjoy the good things as well.
I love that. And that's so important. You know, I think so often people get focused on just all the wrong stuff, you know, and so many people will tell me, oh, I've got these problems in my life. And it's like, well, if you just focus on the right stuff, you know, then you're going to have so much of a better life and not sweat the small stuff. Right.
Exactly.
So I love that you used a metaphor in your chapter. And you know, you describe in your chapter this story of a little mouse trying to hold a pot on a boiling, the cover on a boiling pot. And you describe in there, you know, this metaphor is a metaphor for depression. So you describe depression as a relentless attempt to control overwhelming emotions. Can you share more about the moment you realized you needed to change your approach and how that realization impacted your healing journey?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely that, you know, that good girl role, the perfectionist, the people pleaser, like, and I was going through, I think I mentioned there, I was going through a really tough relationship and coming out of the other side of it. And it wasn't until I came out of it that I realized how much I had given up of myself to just like make sure everything was okay all the time. And not till you're like looking back on it, you're like, whoa, I really just disappeared, you know? And so then that was the aha moment. That was like a turning point where I also was in grad school at the same time. So it was just like a lot of things pulling me in a lot of different directions. I was sleeping like 3 hours a night. Talk about burnout. And I and I'm like trying to study to like help people be healthy. And I'm like, this is really not working for me. But by the time, but part of that was this like societal, like want to have a doctorate in front of my name, to like have that PhD. And I still wanted to do all the woo stuff. And I'm always been a little bit alternative. I was never going to work in like a clinical setting, but I wanted to know about the human body. I wanted to know everything about how the human body works. And I was really stuck on needing to have that doctor in front of my name so that when I did go and do more alternative stuff, I had some sort of authority. And it wasn't till I hit that depression that was right after that relationship that I took a year off from grad school because I was so burnt out, that I was able to have this like healing moment with a Reiki session, actually, where like I came in so like brain fogged and sluggish. And then all of a sudden, like it felt like I was floating, and I just had this, like my brain was going a mile a minute, and then it went clear. And then I just heard like a voice that said, "You're enough." And that was just like a real switch moment for me, of like, okay, like you don't need to do all the things to be worthy, to, you know, be able to do what you want to do and go after what you want to go after. And so that's when I started kind of exploring more of the things that I wanted to, instead of trying to be like, get the things you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
In relationships and, you know, in my career. So that's kind of how it all came together.
I love it. And you know, you mentioned the good girl mask, right? And so this is something that you talk about in your chapter, is that tearing away the masks and the armor that weigh us down. And that's, I've definitely in my life felt that weight, right? So what are some practical tips that you can give to somebody who wants to begin this process of shedding their emotional armor?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I talk about is that I want everyone to know that they deserve joy, respect, and pleasure, and you never have to prove yourself or earn that from anyone. And so when I think it all comes down to decisions, the decisions we make to choose from what shoes am I going to wear to really big decisions. And I think there's this really interesting exercise to continuously ask yourself, when you're going to make any sort of choice, does this bring me joy? Does this bring me respect from others and from myself? And is this a pleasurable experience? And I don't think we take those into account when we're making life choices, small or big. And I think that our choices would be very different if we asked those questions, and they would center ourselves a lot more in doing that.
This is so powerful. It's, just that's something I was even talking to Kayla about this morning, right? Is, finding what brings you the joy and moving in that direction, right? And recognizing, sometimes you have to recognize when what you're doing isn't making you happy, or what you're doing isn't, I don't even like the word making you happy, because that sounds external, like an effect, but stimulating your happiness, right? And,
Right.
and the kind of thing that, makes your soul sing. That's the kind of work that I like to do, is the stuff that makes your cells dance and your soul sing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's exactly like, because I think so much of the time we think we're working really hard in the right direction, but we don't realize all the unconscious choices we're making that are actually taking us steps backwards. And so it's this interesting exercise to be asking yourself out at every little choice that you're making, just to kind of start being aware of where you are kind of unconsciously taking a choice backwards, kind of a thing.
Yeah, so true. So in your chapter, you mentioned the practice of sending love to yourself. And I feel like today we live in a society where we feel like we need love from other people, right? And so many people, like, really, they sacrifice so much just to get other people to love them.
Yeah.
But why should we seek love from ourselves first?
Because that's really, I think of it as like everyone talks about filling your cup, but I think the thing, I forget where I heard it from first, but there's the idea of when you pour out and you're helping other people, you have to tip the cup, which means you're inevitably emptying your cup, versus having a cup that is able to stand up straight all the time and be overflowing. And then you fill other people's cups from like a fountain that's overflowing, and you never have to go below the top line of the cup. And so that's why you have to love yourself, because the more that you love yourself, the more that you take into account what your body is telling you, what your soul is telling you, what your mind is telling you, and you don't make it it starts off whispering, right? And then eventually it starts yelling at you, and you're like, oh no, why does everything suck? It's because it's trying to yell at you because you weren't paying attention. And so I think that the more we pay attention to it, the more we're able to keep that cup full. and we're able to recognize when we're emptying our cup, so we can kind of take a step back instead of feeling like, oh no, my cup's half full, well, I'm just going to keep going. And so that's kind of why it's so important, because we can't really be our best self to the people that we love, or to the projects we want to create, or to the dreams we want to go after, if we're always running on empty.
Absolutely true. And yeah, been there myself, right? Where I've run myself ragged, run myself empty. I'm always giving and doing for other people, and then sometimes forget to do myself. We have that old and sometimes tired metaphor. If the cabin pressure drops in an airplane and the masks drop down, you have to put the mask on yourself first, if you want to be able to help other people.
Well, and especially being in the kind of healing, in the therapists and the hypnotherapists and the NLP practitioners and the energy workers and massage therapists and such are all givers. We all want people to feel better. And so it's something that I am continuously relearning the lesson, and I just get better and better. It's not like we're human. We want to go and do the things, all the things, right? But we're able to learn quicker and quicker to listen to ourselves and kind of pull back a little.
Absolutely. So in your chapter, you tell a really moving story about losing your brother when you were a teenager, and that you kind of went on this mission to bury the emotions, right? All I need to do is be busy. That's what we tend to do. But your chapter actually emphasizes the importance of allowing emotions to surface rather than bottle them up. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, it was obviously a really rough time. We were really close. It was very sudden and kind of, we didn't see it coming. And then I started college like almost right away. And I'm like, sweet, freshman year, I've got this, and I just remember getting to a point and having this conversation with my mom, and like just weird things kept happening, like psychosomatic type stuff. And my mom and I were just like, I think you just need a break. I think you never processed anything from it. And it took like 2 years for me to like figure that out. But then, I decided to go. I was thinking of going to chiropractic school. And so I thought, oh, massage would be like a cool thing preparatory before that. And I had seen these ads for Costa Rica School of Massage Therapy. And I was like, sweet, that sounds awesome. And I'll be able to like be in a healing space, in nature and stuff like that. And it was amazing. And not only that, but we were a very small group, and you're getting massaged like 2 or 3 times a day because you're each other's like bodies. And I think all that body work and like being in nature, it really did allow me to just finally let go and feel. I also hadn't figured out how to manage the emotions yet, so that was a struggle. But it's all a learning lesson, and you handle things one way, and then you're like, well, that didn't work. And so it's always an experiment. I think you're always going to like, well, let me see, this is a weird new thing I don't know how to deal with. Let me try this thing. And like, that does work. And you keep doing it, or it doesn't work. And you're like, ooh, not going to do that again. Or you do it again, and then you have to learn the lesson all over again.
That's right. All right. So we are here today supporting our book launch of our brand new book called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. Mistral is one of the co-authors of the book, and she has written a really great and touching chapter on, and with a great metaphor in it as well. So Mistral, if people want to connect with you or maybe even work with you, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, I have another really awesome hypnosis. If they want a freebie, is it's free-hypno.com. Or you can reach out to me at Embodied Magnetism on Instagram too. Just DM me and say hi.
I love it. And so Instagram is the best place to follow you. If people want to work with you, explain a little bit. We've got about 1 minute and 15 seconds. Explain a little bit about what you do to help people.
Right. So I combine energy work, NLP, hypnosis, and I like to create these really magical moments, but that are also very like actionable and practical. I want you to have that like emotive experience, but then also know exactly what to do with it as you move forward. And so I have a Cycle Breakers Collective, which is this really deep clearing calls we do every week. And that's super powerful. It's like a collective healing experience. And then I also have a a more intimate kind of coaching group where we walk through the whole five steps of my framework to kind of create space and then be able to plant seeds in like a very nutrient dense kind of soul sort of a thing. And so that whatever you do, you can take it on and make the most of it.
I love it. One of the first metaphors I ever heard in hypnosis is that, the soil doesn't care what seed you plant in it. You could plant a beautiful rose, you could plant poison ivy, right? The soil's going to grow whatever you put in it. And so I love that you said nutrient rich, right? Let's plant the right seeds and then give them the right reinforcement. Thank you so much, Mistral, for hanging out with me. And let's get this book to number 1.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you.
Yay. Oh, all right. And now we have our next author, which is Jennifer Altimore. And Jennifer has written a chapter. Let me bring Jennifer on stage there. Jennifer's chapter. Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great. So her chapter is on the power of small steps. Jennifer Altimore is a marketing expert with over 20 years of experience in corporate America, specializing in strategic growth and leadership development. She founded J2ML LLC, where she serves as a board-certified hypnotherapist and life coach, specializing in neurolinguistic programming and positive psychology. Jennifer helps entrepreneurs and business leaders surpass their comfort zones to achieve their full potential. Her blend of corporate expertise and mindset transformation empowers clients to create the life they desire, making her a trusted guide for change and success. I love you bringing hypnosis into corporate world. It needs it. Yeah. So the power of small steps, Jennifer emphasizes that change through challenging is essential and achievable through small, consistent actions. She shares her personal transformation journey, which began with inspiration from podcasts and highlights the importance of belief in setting the foundation for change. Jennifer advocates for breaking down goals into manageable steps and using resistance as a sign of growth. And so, Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm excited for this launch, and I know we're going to crush it this weekend. I love it. So tell me what inspired you to join this book and to write this chapter?
I think when I first saw the opportunity to come out or to help with this book, and it was focused around change and the evolution of that, I immediately felt called to do this. So change has always been a huge part of my life. Some of it I had control over, some of it I didn't have control over. When I learned I could have control over all of it is really when my life started changing and looking up. And I just really believe that everybody deserves to know that change is possible and happiness is possible. And whatever it is that you want and desire can be yours if you believe that it can happen, right? So when I saw this opportunity come up, I thought, oh gosh, change, that is right up my alley. That is exactly what I want to tell everybody about and make sure everybody knows that through the choices that they make, change is possible. So that's what really drew me to wanting to be a part of this project.
I love it. There are so many people who think that, God or universe or life just dealt me this hand and I've just got to play with these cards that I'm given. And people don't realize, let's use the metaphor, take a hand, right? In poker, you get to give some of the cards back and get new cards anytime you want to, right? Right. I love it. So one of the things that I love in your chapter, and this is something that most people resist, ironically enough, is that you mentioned that resistance is a sign of growth. Yeah. And so many people resist resistance. So how can someone reframe resistance and self-doubt to view themselves as positive indicators of progress?
Yeah, I think it's it's in our culture today. It probably comes up on all my feeds because of what I do and what I read and what I absorb. But it's this thought that failure is a bad thing, right? And that we hit something, we hit a wall, whatever that is. And, oh, that's a sign that we're not supposed to do that. Right. And for me, what I have learned is that when you hit that wall or when you run into something or something stops you or you second guess yourself, that really is the moment to really reflect. And that's where that reframing comes in, to reflect on, oh gosh, this really just means I'm going in the right direction. Right. And myself, my body, my soul, my mind isn't used to that direction. And so it's protecting me, right? And it's saying, hey, time out here, right? There's something going on, and we're not used to this. And is this where we want to go, right? And a lot of times we look at that and just say, "Oh gosh, no, I don't want to move any forward anymore. I don't like change. I'm worried about what that may be." And really, by leaping forward into that, resistance is really where you're taking that next level of growth. I tell people all the time, like, I started going down this path, and but then all these signs came up, and I was like, all those signs were great things that you were doing exactly what you were supposed to doing and be doing and moving in the right direction, right? Don't stop, keep going. So I love that reframe. I use it all the time because, like I said, the word failure is such a constant. It has such a negative impact in our world and our society today. And really, failure should be looked at as a positive word, right? And it should be looked at as a growth word, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I love the reframe of that.
Absolutely. There was somebody that wrote a book a few years back that was all about, your brain is wired to hate change, and you're doomed basically to always be this like, mechanical or like reptilian part of your brain. And it was like, trying to short circuit that. And the whole premise of the book was people hate change. But I
Mm,
ask people all the time, I go, if you opened your bank account today and there was $1 million in there, would you hate that? No. If you looked in the
right.
mirror today and you were the same weight you were in college, would you hate that? No. Right. If you woke up one morning and your relationship was just more loving and amazing, would you? That's all change.
Yeah.
Right. We
Yep.
don't fear change. We just have
Right.
to reframe what we think change is,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
and that's so important. So in your chapter, you discuss the power of small, consistent steps.
Mm,
And I know for myself, I've been a coach for almost 24 years. And I get people all the time. They're like, no, Michael, I need to take big, massive action, quantum leaps. That's the only thing that's good enough for me. Right. And they think
yeah.
that small steps aren't good enough. But let's talk about that small,
Yeah.
consistent steps. Those two words together are important.
Yeah, I think we're all like that though, in a way, at the beginning of our journeys, right? Where we do think that, to make big change, we have to make big steps, right? And it has to be when I wake up tomorrow morning, or, like you have with the new year, January 1st, I'm starting my diet, or I'm going to stop smoking, or I'm going to do whatever the things I'm going to do, right? It's going to be big. It's going to be, solid on this date, and all of a sudden black and white, right? Um, for me, I think that what we lose track of, and we do this in goal setting, we do this in all kinds of things, is the little steps it takes us to get there, right? I think what happens is we forget about the little steps,
Mm.
and we lose interest, right? We don't reflect back on those. So when I first started healing myself, little things that you always hear about meditation, you always hear about positive affirmations, all of these kind of things. For me, just going to YouTube and doing like a 2-minute meditation, I always said, "Oh, I cannot meditate. I don't know how to meditate. I don't have. I have, I'm
Yeah.
all over the place. I have ADHD. I can't focus." And I thought, "Oh my God, I have 2 minutes. I literally have 2 minutes to be able to do this." So go to YouTube, find that guided meditation, and got myself into that habit of starting to do that every single morning. And I talk a little bit about, stacking of habits and stuff as well, which I'll talk about in a second. But I got into that every 2-minute kind of thing. And I started noticing positive change already happening. I mean,
Mm.
yes, it did not happen overnight, right? And within a week, I wasn't like all of a sudden feeling this great, wonderful thing. But this consistency that I kept up 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, I could tell that my mindset was shifting, that things were shifting for me, the way I thought about things. And what else could it be, right? It had to have been me taking that time to reflect. And slowly over time, that 2 minutes became 5 minutes. I think I'm up to like maybe 12 minutes on a good day now, but small, consistent change, small little things, 12 minutes a day, that's nothing. We all have that, right? And I think the other thing too, the consistency of it, right? So what are things that we're currently doing today? Do we go out every morning, grab our phone while we're doing our coffee and taking a look at our phone, right? How do we stack things that we're already doing, that we're already in a routine of, and stack those small 2-minute, you know, um, new habits kind of on top of that? So I think the small little things that we can do, they don't seem as big, and they become so natural, right? And they just become all of a sudden, they're our new habit. That's just what we do now. Um, you know, trying to do something big, like I'm going to run 2 miles every morning. Well, that might last for 2 days, right? It's much harder to bite off. What do they say? Don't bite off more than you can chew, right? That's
Yeah.
definitely biting off more than you can chew. So
I love it. So one of the things in your chapter you talk about is the experience of going through significant life changes such as divorce. And I know, a lot of times people will go through these significant life changes and it now becomes the reason why they're broken or the reason why they're not going to succeed, the reason why they're not good enough. You look at this kind of experiences in a different way. So talk a little bit about that.
yeah, so it was wild for me while I was, kind of coming out and going through my divorce. I had all these other things that were happening at the same time, and um, I just remember at one point, and I had been doing coaching. I had an NLP coach, still have her, NLP coach, and was, working on myself, trying to get my mind right, understanding if other people can do it, I can do it. And I had a girlfriend say to me, "How are you standing right now?" And I remember that moment. And I just remember, God, how am I standing right now? Most of this stuff, you know, would probably could break somebody, right? And I thought about that, and I thought about all the little tools that I have in my tool belt. Again, going back to little change, right? Little things that I was doing that I wasn't consciously doing anymore. They were just happening, right? My meditations were getting longer. My positive affirmations were getting stronger, right? My belief system was changing. And it was in that moment when I realized that all these small little things were actually allowing me to grow through the divorce and the other things that were happening at the same time, new jobs, accidents, right? All kinds of craziness. But it was all the little tools in my tool belt that I had kind of that had grown to be a part of me, that was helping me kind of glide through that difficult time. So, while divorce is not easy on anybody, right? It was such a turning point for me because I was good with the direction that we were going. My ex-husband and I both today still are on very friendly terms. And I do attribute a lot of that to just being in a positive mindset about that. The change is good, right? And it moves everybody to that next level of where they want to be at, that different mindset, that positive side of things. So, yeah, I do. Again, divorce is not easy. I'm not trying to say that it is easy, right? But it is having those tools in your tool belt and having the right mindset really changes the perspective of that, which is not normal in today's world.
Right. And, one of the things I always say is that, every time we have something that goes bad, right? We all go through this period of like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. And this and that. But there's always this phrase that says, 10 years from now, we're going to look back on this and laugh.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, if you're going to come 10 years from now, look back on it and laugh, why not laugh now?
Yeah.
Why use time as an excuse for you to look back and go, that was actually the best thing that ever happened to me,
Mhm.
right? Maybe divorce isn't the most amazing success in the world, but we often look back on and go, that was exactly what was supposed to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I'm a big believer in that, Michael, that, everything happens for a reason, right? All of those kind of pieces there. And I think that is something too, that even in these really tough times, regardless of what they are, and everybody in this world has them. I don't care, who you are. Everybody has tough moments. It is that knowing that something this is happening for a reason, right? There's something good coming of this. We don't know what that is yet, but having that belief that it exists and having that belief that that good is there is really what gets you through that tough moment.
right. Absolutely. So if our audience wants to connect with you further, maybe even work with you one-on-one, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So you can, reach out. My website is jaltimore.com, or jaltimore on Instagram is probably the best social platform. Obviously I do work with corporate accounts as well. So you can find me on LinkedIn, also under J Altimore. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. Of course, getting in touch through Facebook is fine as well, but DMing is on Instagram is usually the best.
Gotcha. And so we have about a minute and 15 seconds left. So just share with people how you help them. What is it that you can help them with?
Yeah. So, my goal really is working with professionals and entrepreneurs and helping them with their goals, right? I think that we all get into this place of, um, is work our life, right?
Yeah.
Do we spend too much time here? Do we do this? Like, there's got to be more to life than this. And so, what I really do is help people uncover what that other side of them is, right? So, sometimes we work because we get the most validation. We work so hard because that's where we get our validation. And I really like to guide people into, where else they can get that validation from, how else that they can do it. Where do they need to open up and believe in, and to try to find that balance. So that is my goal of helping individuals
I
in that
love it.
space.
I love it. Well, we are here this weekend supporting our book launch, Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. We just launched at midnight this morning, and the launch party goes through tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. If you get the book before then, you get $1,000 in gifts from Jennifer, myself, and the other co-authors. So thank you, Jennifer, so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
You too. Thank you. All right. And next, I'm excited to announce our next author, Joanne Kleppel. Joanne,
Hey.
Change is an inside job. So Joanne is the founder of Live Your Yellow Brick Road and yogameetsyou.com. She's an expert in change and transformation, dedicated to personal growth and development. She aims to elevate humanity's frequency, helping women become unstuck and empowering them to live purposefully. In Change is an Inside Job, Joanne explores the concept that change is a natural and essential part of life, often misunderstood as difficult due to subconscious resistance. She emphasizes the importance of aligning the conscious mind and the subconscious mind to facilitate change, likening the mind to an iceberg where the larger unseen portion drives our behavior. She outlines the layers of change, asserting that true transformation occurs internally, and she discusses tools to overcome limiting beliefs and achieve personal growth. So Joanne, welcome. And tell us what inspired you to join this book. This is your second book with us, actually.
Yes.
So what inspired you to join this book and write this chapter?
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, so exciting. So what really inspired me to write this was the title, Inner Revolution and Embracing Change for Greatness. So my entire life has been about change, from being a young child, going in foster homes, going here, going there. When I heard the title, I was like, there's so many things that I could be writing about: corporate, personal development. It was just a wide range. And one of the things that doesn't matter if it's corporate or personal, what I hear a lot is change is difficult. Change is hard. We're all afraid of change. We're saturated with change. But without change, we would not be where we are today as individuals, as society. So that was my biggest reason. There's just so much, and change is not to be feared. Change. If we can embrace change, we're going to be able to change. We be stuck.
I love it. I think we might be having a little bit of an audio issue. So if you're listening and it sounds a little funky, I apologize for that. Stick with us. So Joanne, you mentioned that aligning the conscious and the subconscious mind is crucial for effective change. Can you elaborate on how this kind of alignment is important in people's lives?
Yes. Well, think about, let's say you and Kayla were going on vacation together. Imagine Kayla, on a nice sunny holiday, maybe on a nice golf holiday somewhere. That would not work so well. But if you and Kayla were aligned together and agreed that you wanted to go to the same place, it's much smoother, right? You both can enjoy the holiday. You might do your own things while you're there, but getting there, that whole process is much smoother. So just our subconscious mind kind of work the same way. If one is out of alignment, it actually just causes a lot of problems, and it's if you are swimming against the tide. So you want to swim with the tide, and that's when you have your conscious and subconscious aligned. Otherwise, it feels like that you're swimming against the tide. It looks like everything's a struggle, no matter what you want to do to improve in your life, whether it be financial or career or relationships. So aligning them is really important. So you're speaking, you're on the same, singing the same tune, so to speak.
I love it. So one of the things you talk about in your chapter is what we like to call the layers of change, right? Most people in their life think, well, all I have to do is change my behavior. But then we get people who are like, well, I've tried everything and nothing works, right? So they've changed their behavior over and over and over again. They're not getting the kind of result they want. So what is it about going deeper that's so important? And how can people do that?
Yes. Well, going deeper is if you come across a situation where you find you've tried everything, just not getting there, that's a sign that you need to actually dig deeper. So a lot of times we are driven by our belief systems, our value systems, our identities, and we don't even realize it because some of this is so embedded in our subconscious. Whether it was embedded there when we were a child, in our imprint period from 0 to 7 years old, where we're just absorbing the beliefs from our parents, from our teachers, etc. Or that we've made a decision about a belief based upon our experiences. So if you come across a situation where it's like, yeah, I've tried this, it doesn't work, or I did it for 2 weeks, you really need to begin digging deeper, kind of getting down to what we call the root, what's driving that, what in your subconscious program is driving that.
Yeah. And, one of the metaphors we use quite a bit in NLP is that, a lot of times when people are not enjoying their life,
Mm-hmm.
if we use the metaphor of a tree, they're complaining about some rotten fruits on their tree, right? And they're like, how come this fruit's rotten? How come that fruit's rotten? And they're trying to work on individual fruits. But when we go to the roots, we fix the root problems, that all the fruits on the tree, become healthy.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so powerful. So one of the things I love is you provide in your chapter kind of a step-by-step guide for self-hypnosis. Now, many people mistakenly believe that hypnosis is dangerous or that it's evil or that it's giving up control. Can you explain self-hypnosis to those people who are not familiar?
Sure. So self-hypnosis to me is just a state of trance that we are in at various points in our time, in our day even. So for example, when we go into meditation, we're going into a trance. When we're driving and we're going somewhere, we don't realize how we got from point A to B. We're kind of in another type of trance. Or when we get so lost in reading a book, we lose track of time. It's the same thing. I did a meditation just a couple of days ago, and we used chanting, and we did it for about 30 to 40 minutes. And when people came out of it, they were like, well, that didn't seem like it lasted very, very long at all. So the meditation is something we naturally do. It's not what you see in movies where you've got the little clock going, tick, watch this. And unfortunately, hypnosis gets a bad rap, particularly in comedy shows, right? We've seen the comedy shows where people get up on stage and they start doing crazy things. But they wouldn't do those things if they didn't want to. And that's the same with hypnosis and self-hypnosis, is that we will never do anything that we don't want to do because we have a protection. Our subconscious protects us from doing things that we don't want to do.
Right, exactly. And it's funny because, so many people are afraid of the word trance, and they don't realize, we go into trance multiple times per day, whether we have a hypnotist in front of us or not. And so, explain that concept. When are people in a trance and they don't even really know it?
I would say, think about a time. Let's say if you're a runner and you get into a zone and you just kind of lose track of time, you're in a trance. When you're reading a book or watching a movie and you just completely lose track of time, you're in a trance. Or when you're driving and you don't know how you got from point A to point B, So yeah, those are some examples of kind of being in a trance that we already naturally do today without even thinking about it.
Yeah, my favorite one that most people don't know is that anytime you turn on the TV, you
Oh,
go into a
yes.
trance.
Oh, absolutely. That's the big, oh gosh, Michael, that's the big thing. Yeah, that's a big one. I don't watch TV much anymore, hardly ever. And there's a lot of programming going on when you're watching TV.
That's
Yes.
right. Yeah, and that's been science for anybody who doesn't believe this. This has been scientifically proven and validated multiple times since 1964.
Yes.
And even if you have nothing on the TV, even if you had a channel with snow, it's the refresh rate of the TV is what actually puts you into a hypnotic trance state.
Wow.
And so, I heard one time, well, there's a reason they call it programming on the TV.
Yeah. Well, even when you talk about that as well, think about social media. You get people are in social media, they're just scrolling, and we hear the snowball effect or a rabbit hole. They click on one thing, and then all of a sudden, before they know it, 5 hours have passed, and they've gone into a social media trance.
Right. Yeah. And not only the refresh rate on the phone, right? Because the phones actually refresh the same way TVs do, but then also you get that dopamine hit, right? It's the internal drug dealer.
Yeah.
And too many people don't realize how addictive that is.
Yeah. So if you're going to go into trance, might as well make it a good trance.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I like, even when little things. So, for example, when I am now in, let's say, what we call a rest state in our yoga, for example, I actually put myself into self-hypnosis because you're already there. You've already gotten yourself to a point. So at that point, I go into self-hypnosis, and then I start feeding myself, positive things that I want to achieve, or positive things that I want to change.
I love it. So in the book, you talk about the importance of using positive suggestive language during self-hypnosis. Explain the difference between how most people speak about things that they want to change and positive suggestive language.
Yes. So a lot of times you hear things like, I don't want to be overweight. Instead of, I want to be healthy, or how can I be healthy? I don't want to be in a relationship where somebody cheats. How can you change that to make a positive? I want to be in a partnership where there's trust. Let's see. I don't. Weight is, I don't like exercise, or I don't like the look of my body. Well, how can you turn that around to make it a positive? What would good look like for you? And then focus on that.
Yes, I love it. It's so important. And not just in trance, by the way. I mean, anytime you use language, right? People don't realize if they focus on what they don't want, they're going to get that. And so I'll have people, they'll say to me, Michael, I'm not focusing on what I don't want. I said, I don't want to get sick. It's like, you literally just don't want in the sentence.
And I like to practice that. This is going to sound funny, but with my dog, I give her instructions. So instead of saying, don't. Actually, as my own practice, I will tell her, okay, Dixie, do this instead, or come this way instead of don't go there, come this way.
Mm-hmm.
A little small thing.
Yeah, I just saw a video where a speech therapist was working with a 3-year-old, and she held out 2 things and she said, point to the one that's not red. And the 3-year-old pointed to the red one consistently, right? Because the subconscious mind doesn't understand negatives. It doesn't understand don't or not, or can't or shouldn't. We've got to reframe that around to positive language. So, Joanne, if our audience wants to connect with you further, maybe even work with you one-on-one, what's the best way that they can do that?
Yes, the best place is the website, liveyouryellowbrickroad.com. So liveyouryellowbrickroad.com. All the information is there, all the social, all the direct contacts, email, and phone.
I love it. And tell people a little bit how you can, we got about a minute or so. Tell people about how you can help them. What do you do with people one-on-one when you work with them?
Yes. Well, everything is energy. So change your energy, change yourself, change your energy, change your life. That could be mental energy, your thinking, your mindset. It could be your physical energy. your emotional energy. So work whatever it is that you have. We take some time to understand what it is and find a solution and use the tools that are going to be perfect for you. Yeah.
I love it. So we are here today in support of our book launch, and Joanne is one of the co-authors of our brand new book, Inner Revolution: Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. This is a collaboration between Joanne, myself, and 19 other authors. And it's an absolutely wonderful book. Just came out this morning at midnight, and our launch party goes until tomorrow, December 8th at 11:59 p.m. And if you get the book by then, for just $6.89, we're going to give you $1,000 in gifts, right? Joanna's prepared a gift for the launch. I've prepared a gift. All of the authors have put gifts together. These are things like courses, audio programs, ebooks, even hypnosis sessions. And so all kinds of amazing value in that, just for helping us launch this book and get this book to #1. Our goal is to get this to #1, and you can get it at innerrevolutionbook.com. Step by step there, it'll tell you exactly what to do. So thank you so much, Joanne.
Thank
for
you.
contributing to the book and for being here with us today.
Ciao.
Thank you. All right. And I'm excited to announce our next author. Our next author is Shreve Gould. And Shreve is a master NLP practitioner, master success coach known for blending intellectual depth with emotional insight. With an executive MBA from Emory University, he brings a strategic approach to fostering resilience. His military career as a major in the U.S. Army instilled a profound understanding of leadership under pressure. And after losing his left leg in 2022, just 2 years ago, Shreve emerged stronger, inspiring others through professional and personal challenges. His chapter is called Embracing Resilience in the Midst of Unexpected Challenges and Changes. And he explores how resilience is more than just enduring hardships. It's about adapting and thriving despite adversity. Shreve highlights the role of neurolinguistic programming in building resilience by reframing experiences and removing negative emotions and eliminating limiting beliefs. So, Shreve, welcome.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Tell us first, what inspired you to join this book and to write your chapter?
What inspired me? So what inspired me was other people, what happened to me in 2022 during my health crisis. And to go back to that date was in July of that year, I was running in the woods. I was a CrossFit athlete. I liked running in the woods and trail running, and I was running in at Hog Creek in Cumming, Georgia, and I felt a pain in the middle of my back. And what happened is that in that second, I realized I hadn't seen a cardiologist in years. The pain wasn't in the front chest or my right side, so it wasn't a heart attack. So I went to the doctor, and after that, he ended up getting in for heart catheterization, which turned into a quadruple bypass, which turned into a heparin-induced thrombosis. Then my foot died. I had pneumonia, a whole series of health issues, where ultimately I was dying, and the decision to take my leg was not to save my life, but to give me a chance at life. And my family had to make some difficult decisions along the way. And after my leg amputated and came out of that, I ended up having Addison's disease, which is adrenal gland failure, and where I don't have cortisol in my system. So there's this whole unexpected event. This what is called the Black Swan event. This is a catastrophic event that changes courses in people's lives. And how I was resilient out of that, people want to know how I was resilient out of that. How did I maintain my mindset? How did I seem to adapt so easily? How did I look at this differently? People wanted to understand this. So what inspired me to do this was people was wanting to hear how I became resilient. And resilience is not about, enduring. It's, when we grew up in high school, I was taught always push harder, to swim harder, to push through the pain. All you have to do is push through the pain. And that's enduring. That is suffering. That is not resilience. Resilience is the ability to be flexible, to adjust in extreme periods when there is a choice not to. It is the conscious effort to think, and through the lens of curiosity, how to become better through this experience.
Yes, that's so powerful. And in your chapter, you emphasize the importance of identity in building resilience. So can you share how shifting one's identity can impact their ability to handle adversity?
Yes, definitely. So identity is critical because, August 25th, 2022, I had two legs. My identity was, I was a highly functioning athlete, and I had two legs. The 26th of August, I had one human leg. And so I remember the first day. I remember the first day as if it was today, of them trying to get me to get out of bed. And the leg I lost actually was my dominant leg. And so here I was trying to get out of bed. My mind was telling me that I had to lead with my left leg, and it's not there. So right away, I had to shift my identity, right? Wow. My dominant leg was no longer there. I had now come up with a new identity. And so in that moment, this is like, how am I going to do this? In fact, that was my thought. How am I going to do this differently? And so I had to shift my identity to forever adapting. I'm going to have to figure out this and forever adapt out, in this process of life, that I'm always going to have to figure out how to move differently. And so that's the beginning of that journey. And ever since then, I'm continuing learning how to, and even 2 years later, I'm continuing learning how to adapt with it, because it's a forever adapting. So that's really the identity. That identity sets a set of beliefs underneath it of what, and drives your potential. And then underneath your potential is your behaviors to support all those things. So it's really critical to have the identity that works. People have wanted to call me disabled, and I'm not disabled. I have a disability. In their mind, it's not a disability to me, because I'm forever adapting. So it's important to understand what frame you want to live in, what identity you want that empowers you, versus what other people want to drive their identity or beliefs onto you. I mean, here's an example. I got a handicap sticker on my car because I have a disability. I am not handicapped in any shape or form, but that sticker gets me closer to the door. It makes it easier for me to get back and forth to the car, but I'm far from handicapped. And when I got it, I was only living in a wheelchair, so I needed it. So the thing is that we really have to challenge the identities that other people put on us and say, is that my identity? Is it really my identity? And so forth. For example, ADHD. ADHD is a label. It is not my identity. And so ADHD is just like everything else, says in a scope of things it tells us that we have a disability, but I will tell you, ADHD is my superpower. So there's nothing disabling about it. I think differently. So, I think in 3D. So, how many people, it's their realm, their view of the world that makes us different. But that's okay. Everybody's different.
Absolutely. Amen. I love that. And for anybody who thinks that losing a leg makes you disabled, I mean, it might make some people disabled, but I will tell you, I took a trip to Mexico with Shreve and a few other people. And we were in a villa that was right on the water with these amazing rocks, like a giant, giant boulder. And one morning, somebody goes, "Oh my God, Shreve's climbing the rocks. Somebody stop him. He's only got one leg. He can't do that." And I was like, relax, he's fine, right? Because he's either going to climb the rock and prove to himself who he really is, or he's going to find out what his current limit is, and he's going to challenge that limit so it's not a limit anymore. Right?
And it's exactly right. Part of that experience, in Michael, the day there was a shift, a point and shift, there's always a paradigm shift of a belief or what you're capable of. And I was confined by a set of beliefs that I had, that I was lacking the ability to do things. The day that you and I walked to the beach on that first day, it broke a belief about me that it was not safe to do something. And so from that day on forward, it's like, okay, so I need to consciously challenge this belief, this limiting belief that I can't do something. And so I had to constantly challenge, why can't I do that? For what reason? Because it was so instilled on me for the last year that everything I had to be safer. Well, the reality is that for climbing that rock, the best leverage I had was that freaking artificial leg because it wouldn't break. And it wouldn't even bend. so it was very firm, and it actually gave me a lot of support and safety along the way. It came out of that. Everybody looked at my artificial leg and they saw all this scarring on the plastic. Then they go like, "What did you do with it?" My daughter goes to say, "Dad, you got to be more careful about that." And I looked at her and said, "So you're more worried about the artificial leg than my right leg?"
Right. Well, and here's the funny thing, right? We had a lot of two-legged people there at that retreat that would never have climbed that rock. And the thing is, like for you, this is my projection, right? But for you, it's like, well, you've already lost a leg. What worse could happen to you by climbing a rock? And that attitude is called resilience, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, the way most people get resilience is through some sort of a malady, right? Some sort of a tragedy happening, or some, I built a lot of resilience in my life because I had a traumatic childhood. What do you say to people who haven't had some sort of a traumatic experience and they lack that resilience, but they need it, they want it?
Well, the hardest thing is about resilience is that you're not born with it. It's not a natural ability. It is a function. There's the growth mindset. There's a fixed mindset. There's the growth mindset, and there's a resilient mindset. And the fixed mindset, of course, that person believes that they're fixed in their world. They can't be anything. That is like, you can't get any smarter. You can't become more knowledgeable. You can't become anything other than your natural abilities. And the growth mindset says that you can be everything beyond your natural abilities. And, there's athletes who have proven that from the 5'3" basketball player who played professional basketball, McGee, I believe it was. He was incredible,
yeah.
Right? And if you talk to all the professional athletes, they say it's the fundamentals. You have to practice the fundamentals over and over and over and over to maintain and build that. So resilience is the same thing. Resilience you have to practice, and is a conscious thing. It's not enduring. It's not pushing through pain, and that's the misnomer. That's actually a fixed mindset. Now, resilient mindset does have a component of growth mindset because you are growing in everything else, but it is actually what I consider a reactive mindset versus resilient, which is actually a proactive mindset. It's like, what do I need to do to prepare? And what do I need to do to get ready? And what do I need to glean in myself to be more resilient in the future? From how to perceive. I mean, one of the biggest things is, I will tell you, is in this whole thing is is reframing what people say about you, right?
Yeah.
I had somebody say, such a tragedy that I lost my leg. Well, the reality is that if I had kept my leg, I would have died.
Wow.
And so so where is the tragedy? I in business, we do a lot of 2x2s. And, if you do a 2x2 where it's lose leg, keep leg, live or die, you go and you play out where the tragedy is. There is no tragedy. It doesn't belong there, because if I kept my leg, I would have died. And so that's not even part of it. And then, so if I lost my leg and died, then that's not a tragedy. They did everything they could to save me.
Mm.
If I lost my leg and lived, I'm alive. That's not a tragedy. I hope it's not. And the other thing is that, keeping my leg and living was such a small probability that when occurred. So, it's really not a tragedy.
I love it. So we are here today in support of our new book, Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. Our launch is today and tomorrow. If you get the book before 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, December 8th, then you're going to get $1,000 in free gifts, valuable gifts. And those gifts, by the way, include courses, audio programs, hypnosis recordings, ebooks. There's all kinds of great content that you're going to get as thanks for helping us during this launch. And so, Shreve, If people want to work with you one-on-one, or if they just want to connect with you and follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, the first thing they can do is follow me on social media at 2B Resilient, the number 2, the letter B, and the Resilient. And you can follow me on social and so forth. And then on top of it, we'll be launching 2beresilient.com soon. And that's the best way to connect with me and to work with me.
And if, share a little bit, maybe 30 seconds of how you help people. What is it that you do to work with people?
Well, one of the things I found is that people are typically in a stuck, stopped, or stalled state. And that initial stalled state. And I'm really great of helping people break through that barrier. And so, that's shifting their mind, breaking some limiting beliefs or actually limiting decisions, and really breaking through these states and shifting their mind to move forward. So that's that resilient mindset I'm helped build.
I love it. So again, the book is Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. Shreve's chapter is Resilience in the Midst of Unexpected Challenges and Changes. Thank you so much, Shreve.
Thank you.
All right. I'm very excited to announce our next author, which is Sharon Ostermeyer. And Sharon is a holistic chiropractor with over 38 years of experience who owns Comac Chiropractic Care. She graduated cum laude in biology from the University of Bridgeport and earned her doctorate and chiropractic degree from New York Chiropractic College. Following her husband's passing, she rebuilt her life and now focuses on helping others, especially widows, transform their lives. As a certified success and life coach, she offers personalized coaching sessions to support growth and success in her clients and her patients. In her chapter, When Sinking is Not an Option, Sharon shares her transformative journey following the sudden death of her husband. Faced with financial challenges, personal grief, she describes how she navigated widowhood to rebuild her chiropractic practice, finding community support, and setting new life goals. Sharon emphasizes the importance of cultivating a positive mindset through gratitude, setting actionable goals through various life's areas, and seeking holistic speaking. Her story illustrates how resilience and determination can lead to a life of abundance. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Michael.
I love it. So tell me a little bit about what was it that inspired you to join this book and write this chapter?
I believe that it really came down to wanting to share my story to inspire others to do the same. Because when my husband passed away suddenly and I realized where my life was at that point, I had to make change myself. And when you're in the beginnings of grief, or any time of grief, actually, it's kind of hard to see where the next step should be. And I had an aha moment. I took a walk on the beach one day and I realized I had to make some changes. And now I would like to help others do the same, because it's not always easy.
It's so powerful. One of the things you talk about in your chapter is that your grief didn't disappear, it changed. Yes. And so, there's so many people, especially when going through, losing their significant other, all they want is for the grief to go away. We tend to try to distract ourselves, bury ourselves, Yes. What is your message of hope for those who just want the grief to go away?
I can say from my experience and from working and knowing many widows and widowers that the grief really never goes away. It's always there because it changes you. But it does soften with time. And in certain times, I have found that it has kind of given me the push to make changes in my own life, to make positive changes in my own life.
Yeah, and nobody would ever say that losing a significant other is a good thing necessarily.
No.
Every new chapter is a new chapter, though.
Yes. It definitely has changed me in many positive ways. And it's hard for someone starting out in grief after losing a spouse to understand that. But it definitely has changed me into being a different person. A more positive person, someone who kind of can see not sweating the small stuff kind of thing, like what's important and what's not so important. But yeah, back to grief never goes away. It's kind of like the ocean, it goes up and down. And I'm almost 8 years post death of my husband, and I had a tough week this week, and go figure. A couple things triggered me, but I am resilient to make that change back to positivity.
Mm. And that's the thing, is I think you have to stay focused on that. So one of the things you talked about is you didn't just deal with the passing of your husband. Your husband was in charge of all of the finances, and you assumed that things were handled. And then when your husband passed, you had this sort of double hit of financial situation was a disaster. And so, what was it that you did to navigate turning around and getting focused on solving that issue in the midst of your grief?
The financial component, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge hit to realize that I was at rock bottom, and that I had to make some changes because I had 3 kids in college, and I had a home that I didn't want to lose. And yeah, so I just used that drive within me that I wanted to take care of my kids and not lose my home. And so I buckled down, and I did what I had to do to step by step address all the different financial situations I was dealing with. And I had some help, some coaching that was huge. And so that's why I want to help others to do the same. And I have to say, I was in a lot of debt at the time, and I'm now debt free, just by step and making some changes.
I love it.
A lot of changes.
Yeah. I love it. It's that's so powerful. And one of the things that you talk about, and this is going to be confounding for some people, but it's so important, right? You talk about in your chapter the power of gratitude. And I know there are a lot of people who are going through some situation right now where they say, how on earth could you expect me to have gratitude now? And I don't think people realize how necessary gratitude is, no matter what situation you're in. So how did you find it within you, having lost your husband, having this massive, blow that the finances were all messed up, and not knowing if your kids could go back to college, not knowing if you could keep your house? How did you find the ability to have gratitude in those moments?
It was suggested to me at the time to find 5 things every morning, and to write them down in my journal, which I continue to do today. And sometimes it was really, really hard, especially on days when I didn't even want to get out of bed. But everybody, no matter where you are, depths of grief or financial distress. I mean, I look out the window today and the sun is so beautiful and shining. I step out of my bed onto my 2 feet that I could go take a walk, that my kids are like, there is always something to be grateful for. And the more we practice recognizing these things, the more easily it comes that we can realize exactly what we are grateful for. And there's always something to be grateful for, even if there's other things that we're not so grateful for. So I find the balance is really important. And when I'm really down, at times I can just look around and see it more clearly, and it's always there.
I know at one point you said that you went to a group of bereaving widows, and a lot of times when we're dealing with real big challenges in our lives, all we want to do is crawl into a shell, kind of turtle it or ostrich and bury our head. How long did it take you before you got to that point where you were willing to go? And did you have to overcome that internal feeling of, I just want to be alone, I just want to crawl into a hole? How important was it for you to find that community?
Yeah. As far as grief as a widow or a widower losing a spouse or a partner, it's very different than other losses. And there are other losses that are so huge. I acknowledge that. But being around other people that are going through it and understand, because no one can truly understand the loss of a partner unless you've actually gone through it. You can be sad for someone and you can think you understand, but you really don't unless you go through it. And it's not an easy thing. So yeah, it was really important. And it only took me a few months to start with a bereavement group. And it was a young widow and widowers group because I was 54 at the time. But it was huge. It was an 8-week program, and it's here on Long Island. It's an amazing program. And it's all about bereavement and connecting with others that understand. And I do understand.
You have a background in chiropractic and functional medicine. And, one of the things that I'm always passionate about talking about is, and most people I don't think realize that, Western medicine I don't think has caught on to this yet, but when we have these internal negative emotions and instead of expressing them and working through them, we just bottle them up inside, they get trapped in our body. And my personal belief is that creates dis-ease, right? I like to hyphenate it dis-ease because it describes what it is better. Speak to that from your medical background of how important is it to move through and process these emotions rather than stuff them and ignore them?
Yeah, it's huge because not just grief, but any kind of trauma that we internalize and don't release just festers inside us. And it just does cause disease. It causes different health issues, different emotional issues. I know at a certain point, I did have some holistic trauma work done to help me deal with my grief. And it was hugely beneficial to me. And after that, so many other things in my life, including my health, became so much better, improved.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I know a lot of times when, we're sort of taught, in Western society, there are other societies that celebrate death, right? When a person passes, they celebrate that. It becomes a, not to say they won't miss that person, but it's a celebration of that person's life. In Western world, we really focus on the loss side. And one of the things I find is that specifically when somebody loses their significant other or child or even parent, there's this idea that I'm supposed to grieve. My grieving shows that I love them. And people will hold on to that grieving for sometimes years or decades because the feeling is if I don't mourn their loss, then that means I don't love them anymore. And I personally think that's a misnomer, right? I have a friend whose wife passed, and I sent him a grieving meditation that I made, and I kept asking him for months and months, have you listened to it? And he said, I've got it open in a tab on my browser, but I haven't listened to it yet. And it was like this thing of he didn't want to let go of the grief. He thought he was supposed to have it. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I believe that there's other ways to celebrate love and life of a partner or a parent or a child after losing them. And one of the things that I do now, and I have from the very beginning after my husband's passing, was on those holidays and on my husband's birthday, anniversaries, Father's Day, we celebrate.
Yeah.
I get together with my kids. I say, oh, come on, Mom's taking everybody out to dinner, or we gather around the table and we share memories, positive memories. It's just that's one thing that I do, and it may not be the thing for others, but I find it really, really positive to focus on happy memories, and that love is always there. I will always love my husband, and that will never change no matter what I do in my life. And it doesn't mean I don't miss him. It doesn't mean that I don't grieve him, but I'm at a stage where I've changed it to be a positive recollection, a positive memory to celebrate his life and not let the death drag me down, which it did for a very long time. But that's the goal, is to show my kids what a positive life is and moving forward.
I love it. So we are here today in support of our new book launch, Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. We launched this morning at midnight, and we are on a quest to make this book #1 I think it's about time that we have a positive book, a neurolinguistic programming book, #1. And so you can get the book at innerrevolutionbook.com. And Sharon, if people want to work with you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I have an email right now. I'm working on a website, but my email is snostro, snostro @AOL.com. So right now, that's the best way to reach out to me, and I get back to everyone right away.
I love it. And I know you're primarily in chiropractic, and people think you actually have to show up in an office to do that. Do you do work with people remotely? So if we have somebody in, Alaska or whatever, and they want to work with you, they can
Zoom and FaceTime.
I love it. And that's so powerful because, there are people all around the world that are struggling with this and dealing with this. And here's the thing, your significant other would not want you to struggle with this. I'm sure their last wish as they leave this earth is that you are happy and that you move forward in your life. And so, I don't think personally we honor them by staying in that grief for indefinite periods of time. We honor that by living the best life that we can live. And so they can look down on us and smile.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really great way to put it, to honor your loved one. That's exactly the right word.
Well, thank you so much, Sharon. It was great to have you here.
Thanks, Michael.
All right. I'm excited to bring our next author on, and that is Rachel Bach. And so Rachel is a software development engineer. I can relate to that, with experience and success in life coaching. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from the University of Colorado and a front-end engineering certificate from the Turing School of Software and Design. Rachel adapted Transform Destiny's principles for success into the PAWS method, PAWS, a framework for cultivating a purpose-driven life. She blends her technical skills with holistic personal development, inspiring others to discover their higher purpose. In her chapter, The PAWS Method, Purpose-Driven Outcomes, Alignment, Walk the Walk, and Study, Rachel introduces the PAWS method for a tool for personal development, drawing parallels between software development and personal growth. I think there are a lot of parallels there. Mm-hmm. This method emphasizes creating purpose-driven outcomes, aligning thoughts and actions, taking consistent steps. There's that word consistent again. I love it. And continually studying results for fostering meaningful change. So Rachel, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you here. So tell me, what inspired you to join this book and to write your chapter?
For a lot of my life, I felt like I was pretending. I felt like I had to be a certain person to be accepted in my family and my friend circles, and to be accepted at work, especially. And for the longest time, I spent doing something that I know I was good at, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so recently I've changed my career path, and I actually became a software developer engineer. So it was a major change in my life. I had spent 15 years as an accountant, and now as a software developer, I'm doing something that I love. And I really feel like that change took a lot of energy and effort. And I think people are afraid of change. I don't want people to feel that way. I want people to know that change can be exhilarating, and it can be exciting, and it can lead to so much joy in life.
I love it. So you're a developer. That's obviously something, if anybody knows my story, that's something that I can very much relate to. I was a software developer for years. And you allude to the fact that programming and debugging the mind is like programming and debugging programs, right, and apps, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
So as a developer, a lot of what we focus on is the end behavior. We want to get a certain result. And like many of us who set goals, we have a result in mind, but we don't know what behavior will get us to that result. So when I talk about programming, it's very literally creating the behavior that produces the results. In our mind, we don't have the files in front of us, the beliefs or the values that we have accepted into our mind files, so to say. And so it takes a little bit more work, but we can still recognize those beliefs and those values that are implemented to create those behaviors that are giving us the results we get.
And, it's funny because, I know most people don't know anything about software development, but, I've been programming since I was 10 years old. And what most people don't realize is that if you look at a whole project, the programming is probably 20% of the project. The debugging is the 80%.
Yeah.
And so most people, when they get into personal development, they'll say, I already did my affirmations. Why isn't it working? Right. And they spend the initial amount of time to do something to make the change, but then they don't stick with the debugging part.
Yep.
So talk about that a little bit. What's the difference between the programming and the debugging?
So, with the pause method, for example, when we walk the walk, that is taking the actions to create the results. But the last step is what's the most important step. The last step is to study those results and to realize that when we do something, if that result isn't moving us towards what we are desiring, towards our purpose driven outcome, then we're not really making progress in life. Having the opportunity to think about our results and to ponder what could have caused that and what could have been done differently, that's really the powerful part of moving forward.
Yeah, so powerful. So one of the things I love, and I love the phrase that you use for this. You talk about in your book the importance of having a North Star.
Yes.
Right. If we go back in history before there was GPS and even compasses, right? Every sailor that sailed a ship, the North Star was everything, right?
Mhm.
So can you explain what the North Star is and how can somebody identify their North Star and commit to that?
Oh, those are great questions. First of all, for those who don't know what a North Star is, the North Star was a constant star. It doesn't move. Every time that Earth spins, the North Star is in the same spot. So we can actually take a photograph, a time-lapse photograph of the Earth as it goes around and see all the other stars look like shooting stars because they look like they're moving. But the North Star is the center. It stays consistent. It is one place that, like you mentioned, people can count on. They know where it's at and they can follow the direction from the North Star to get where they're going.
Yeah, it's I think something a lot of people are lacking in their life, right? And it's why people feel like maybe they don't have a purpose or why they feel like they just don't have direction in life. I often use the metaphor of most people's lives is sort of like they're a pinball in a pinball machine, right?
Yeah.
God or universe or source or whatever sort of pulls the plug and pops them into the universe, and then they just bounce off of whatever's in their way, and that dictates their whole direction in life, as opposed to choosing a direction. I think that's one of the big differences between people who are successful and people who aren't. A lot of people, there are some people who find success accidentally, but most people who are successful, they found a North Star, they picked it, and they just relentlessly sailed until they, got to where they wanted to go.
And I love the two words that you've used are choose and relentless. Because so many times, first, once we decide on what our purpose is or what our North Star is, and then choosing to stick with it, having endurance is something that I think is really hard sometimes. We can get so engrossed in the challenge that we stop thinking about that North Star and start focusing on what's right in front of us.
Yeah. And that's so important to have, some people might call it a vision, right? Because the vision is going to get you beyond, when all you're focused on is your feet and the next step that you have to take, right? If you start to run into things like mud or quicksand, you will stop because that's all you'll see. And sometimes you have to raise your eyes up and see what's beyond that and see ways around those things.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where being flexible comes in.
Mhm.
One of the things go ahead. Sorry.
I think I love that word, the flexible aspect. Not only is it a winding path to find that North Star, but sometimes we have to go back and start over.
And that's not a loss.
No, it's a great learning opportunity, or it can be.
Yes, exactly. So one of the things you talk about in your book, this is a term that programmers use all the time, but I don't think that most people use the word or the concept. You talk about the concept of iterative learning and testing. And I don't think most people know what the word iterative means. And so if you could talk about that and how it applies to learning and actually moving forward with your goals, that's so important.
I love that question. When I talk about an iterative process, what that means is it's a cyclical process. I do something over and over again, not getting the same results each time, but doing it so that each time I practice an action, for example, the result changes and gets me closer to that behavior. In programming specifically, when we talk about the iterative process, we're not building the whole thing all at once. We build an application one step at a time, and we make sure that that step works the way we expect it to. And then we move to the next step, and we make sure that section works the way we expect it to. And each feature is kind of built layer by layer, step by step.
Yeah, back in the old days of software development, before my time, they literally wouldn't write the first piece of code until they had the entire thing planned out. And, it could literally take years to deploy a program back then. And what's happened in programming over the years is we've adopted a new way of thinking about programming. Is you develop what's called the MVP, right? Your minimum viable product. That's what's the smallest thing that I can do that's going to bring value. And then you iterate on that and you continue to make it better and better and better. And that allows you to deliver faster. It allows you to get results faster.
And feedback. If you have a client or a customer that is working on something and they're not sure what's going on, then you don't know if you're really supporting that goal to get to their North Star.
I love it. So in your chapter, you mentioned using visualization to help identify desired outcomes. So elaborate on that technique and how that can be practically applied to clarify one's goals and intentions.
So a lot of what I do is I like people to see themselves when, where, doing whatever that they want to accomplish. For example, I have one client that was in school and he was struggling. He felt overwhelmed and he was able to visualize himself reaching the end of his program. And then he saw himself celebrating himself and celebrating accomplishing that program and completing that program. When he actually was able to see himself, it changed how he perceived his struggles. He thought of if it was someone else, for example, doing this and accomplishing this process, then he would support that person and he would actually be admiring how much progress they had made. But when he thought about it, that he was struggling and he was doing it himself, he was kind of stuck in his own vision. But when he stepped out of his own body and saw himself reaching that goal, all of a sudden it made sense and he could forgive himself for stressing about it.
I love it. And that's such an important concept, right? Forgiving ourselves. So often people will do something, it won't go exactly the way they want. And what most people don't realize is usually when you quote fail, you've gotten 90%, 85% success, but they focus on that 10 or 15% that didn't go right. And then they damn themselves and they shame themselves and they, sometimes even call themselves bad names. I mean, I used to be guilty of this myself. And so, talk about that importance of forgiving oneself because, if you don't, what are the results going to be?
I love that. When we talk about forgiveness, it's not just stopping and saying, well, this didn't work and so I'm giving up. But it's stopping and saying, I did the best I could with what I had. I know one of the things that I do is I try to be grateful for everything and look at each situation as a learning opportunity. If I focus on excellence, which is one of the ground rules of the pause method, that's actually looking at, am I better today than I was yesterday? Can I be better tomorrow? What can I do to be better tomorrow? And to realize, the past is over. I'm not going to go back into the past and redo something. I'm not going to have someone forgive me, or I'm not going to have someone change the way they behaved. I can just say what's done is done. And then I can move forward and focus on excellence and focus on improving myself.
That focus on excellence is so powerful, right? Focusing on excellence instead of perfection. So here we are, we're supporting our book launch called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. Rachel is one of the co-authors, and her chapter is about the pause method. And so, Rachel, can people work with you one-on-one? And
Yes.
and if so, how do they contact you and how can they follow you if they want to find out more?
Absolutely. They can work with me one-on-one. I have a website that that forwards to my Facebook page where I post occasionally. It's coachrachelbach.com.
Nice. That's awesome. And what kind of work do you do with people?
I like to do coaching specifically for educational purposes or people who are changing careers, just because that's the change that really impacted my life as well.
Mm, I love it. All right, let's do a little check-in on our book. So we are launching today, and the website, if you want to get the book for just $6.89, it's at innerrevolutionbook.com. And we haven't checked this for a little while here. Uh-oh, my share stopped working. Hang on one second. There we go. So we haven't looked in a little bit. Let's see where we're at. By the way, if you want to get the book, make sure you go to innerrevolutionbook.com. That's where you're going to be able to get the $1,000 in free gifts. Click on Get the Book Now. We're going to give you instructions on how to buy it on Amazon and what to do after that in order to get the gifts. But if we check in on Amazon right now, look at this. We are currently number 3 in the category of neuro-linguistic programming. Love it. And we've climbed to 158 in motivation and 161 in success self-help. So if you are watching this video right now, we need your help. Let's get this book to number 1 and finally have a good positive book at number 1. So thank you so much, Rachel, for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. All right. And I'm excited to announce our next author, which is Carolyn Kahn. Carolyn is a seasoned success coach, registered nurse with over 25 years of experience in empowering adults to transform their lives. She holds degrees from George Washington University and Alfred University, and she has certifications in NLP, coaching, and hypnosis. Carolyn specializes in helping individuals release negative experiences and achieving their goals through techniques like integral eye movement therapy. And throughout her career, she's managed 18 clinics and worked with companies to create healthier work. And Carolyn has been doing this so long, she actually trained with my mentor's mentor, Dr. Al Krasner, which I'm sure was an amazing experience. In her chapter, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness, Carolyn shares her personal journey of overcoming negative self-talk rooted in adverse childhood experiences. She highlights the power of setting clear, achievable goals and surrounding oneself with positive influences. She emphasizes the importance of shifting from negative to positive self-talk to fuel confidence and personal growth. And she provides practical strategies to do that. So Carolyn, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you here today.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So tell me what inspired you to join this book and to write your chapter.
So what happened was, honestly, I saw the cover that was going to be on the book and I got all excited. But I've been wanting to share my message for a long time. Growing up with ADHD, back when I was in school, there was no such thing. There was no such diagnosis. And so I was the problem child, the one who never succeeded, kept failing classes, and there was never anybody there to guide me. And then in my years of being a nurse and being a coach, I've just found so many people that think they can't do things. And so I want to get the message out that, you really can do things. You just have to want to and need guidance, maybe working with people like myself to get you there. But anybody can achieve if they set their mind to it.
I love it. And this chapter is very near and dear to my heart because I had the worst internal dialogue. And, not to make this about myself, but growing up with a mother with borderline personality disorder, I had a very dim view of myself, and that internal dialogue was so toxic. So one of the things you talk about in your chapter is that negative self-talk can actually significantly impact one's self-perception, but not only that, their actions. So, in your experience, what are some of the long-term effects of negative self-talk, and why should people strive to change that?
So that's a great question. So what happens with negative self-talk is when you keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again, your subconscious mind hears it, and your subconscious mind doesn't understand the difference between what's real and what's not real. So if you say things about yourself to yourself enough times, you're really going to believe it. And then you kind of get stuck with where you are. If you take that message and start making it into a positive message, then you then allow yourself to start doing things that you maybe don't feel comfortable with, but there are ways to get there, and to keep repeating to yourself, I know I can do this. There are ways to get it done, and then look for ways to get it done, and not allow that negative speak to stop you from trying, from stopping you to achieving anything.
Mm. Yeah, I know for me, it would always be like, and it's funny because I would refer to myself in the third person in my internal dialogue, right? What makes you think that you're going to be able to achieve that? What makes you think you're good enough? I was always asking myself or saying things like that kind of like were questions, but they were really statements, and definitely held me back in so many areas. So your chapter emphasizes the importance of setting clear goals for personal success. How did setting specific goals help you in your journey of self-transformation?
So with me, because of the ADHD and not understanding how to study, and I couldn't memorize things, I desperately needed a way to get out of the situation I was in and find a way to make money and support myself. And I looked at what's an achievable goal for me. And going to a bachelor's program was not an achievable goal because I honestly never thought I would finish it. So I looked at what is a realistic, achievable goal for me. And that was, let me go to a 2-year school, let me get through that, and let me have a way to support myself. And I never thought I would go anywhere past my 2-year degree. And so I did become a nurse. I got my degree. And then I was working as a supervisor in an emergency room, and the job above me came open and I applied, and I didn't get the job because I didn't have a master's degree. And then I got angry. And for me, anger is a good motivation. So I got angry and I said, no one's ever going to stop me from getting a promotion because of a piece of paper. If I don't deserve it and I don't meet the qualifications, that's one thing, but a degree isn't going to stop me. And that's what then got me forward to eventually getting my bachelor's and master's degree. It was always knowing where do I need to go from here to get myself away from the situation I don't want, and how can I create something to get me to the next step, although I never was very clear about what the next step would get me. So I think the more clear you are what you want is the best way to then set a goal to get to that step.
Yeah, so many people, like, all they focus on is what they don't want in life, right? They'll complain about their job to everyone who will listen, anyone who will listen, but they don't actually ever do anything to get a different job or to change the circumstances of the job they're at. And I think a lot of times it's just because people don't set clear goals. A lot of times I'll bring up goal setting to people and they just sort of roll their eyes like, oh yeah, Michael, that positive, goal setting stuff. But it's such a powerful thing, right? To have that, to have something that you're moving toward, because if you have nothing to move toward, you're not moving.
And along with that, I think a lot of people don't move forward because of fear. And I think it's really important to understand that fear is useful, but it should be a guide. So it's like the first time, so I had an opportunity to go skydiving. And I met up with a group of people, and the one man said, hop on my motorcycle, we'll just go down to Monterey together. And I thought, oh my God, I've never been on the back of a motorcycle. So, the fear helped me to think about, okay, I've never done it, but that's okay. How do I now deal with it? So I've always looked at it as it's a guideline to keep me safe. But then, okay, what can I do to overcome this so that I can do what I want to do or do what I need to do?
I love it. So one of the things you talk about in your chapter is the importance of surrounding yourself with positive influences when trying to overcome challenges of low self-esteem and burnout. What advice would you give to somebody struggling to find supportive relationships?
Depending on where you are in life and who you're around, for me, it's always been going for continuing education. As a nurse, we are required to do that. Then I started looking for personal growth opportunities like NLP. Going into programs like yours, Michael, has just been great because I meet a lot of other people who are inspired to keep learning. I think there are, within everybody's community, there are groups, there are meetups that you can go to and start meeting people who are more motivated, because it's easy and comfortable to stay where you're at with the people that you know. But
Yeah.
if you don't have people that are striving like you, it's harder to achieve when you're the only one that wants to get from point A to point B. It's so much easier when there are people around you who have goals that want to achieve.
Yeah, Jim Rohn famously said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. Harv Eker once said, you show me the pay stubs of your 5 closest friends, and I'll tell you how much you make. And, Kayla and I, right after we first met about 12 years ago, we had a real serious discussion about up-leveling our connections and relationships and putting ourselves around the kind of people. Now, a lot of people will say, well, you're telling me to hang out with millionaires. Why would a millionaire want to hang out with me? Right. And there are a lot of times people don't realize there are plenty of reasons a millionaire might want to hang out with you that have nothing to do with money. Right. And so, I think a lot of times people mistake that, oh, I have to be at a certain level to hang out with these people. But it's actually when you hang out with those people, you hit that certain level.
And that's how I got through nursing school. What happened was I was in a carpool with people. I didn't have a car, so I had to walk the 6 blocks to the person who had a car, and I would pay for gas. But what happened was the 3 people in the carpool were all A students, and I'm a CD student. But being around them on a regular basis helped me to start understanding what's important, how to learn, what to focus on. And so I passed my nursing boards first time around only because of the people in the group I was with. And at the time, I wasn't even aware I was doing it. It just turned out that that's what I was doing.
Yeah. And for us, again, I love that you said education. Some of our closest relationships and most fruitful relationships that we have come from seminars, classes, masterminds. That's a big source for us. But you just got to get yourself out there, And
it's important, and you don't have to have a lot of money to do it, because there are a lot of programs that you can join that are free. A lot of people provide free courses. So money is not an excuse for not doing self-improvement.
Absolutely. Meetup.com has got, millions of groups that get together, and some of them don't cost any money at all, So in your chapter, you suggest journaling as a way to counteract negative self-talk. Now, I know a lot of times I talk about journaling, and this is another one of those things where people roll their eyes, or like, me talking about my emotions isn't going to change anything, How did journaling help you, and what do you recommend for other people?
So I have my nice little book here that I use, and I journal every day. I include 5 gratitudes minimum every day, and I look at what am I happy for in life? And it reminds us of, there's always positive things in your life. And then if I'm struggling with something, writing it down in ink versus on a computer, the brain processes it differently through the mechanics of writing. And it really helps you to clarify what you're trying to get. And if I'm not sure if I should do something or shouldn't do something, I will write the positives and the negatives. And in writing them, it also helps me in my mind clarify what is it that I'm really doing and what can I do better. And sometimes I come up with ideas I didn't even think about consciously. But again, your unconscious brain's always working.
Yeah. And I will tell you from my personal experience, I am one of those people who used to roll their eyes at journaling until I had a personal experience of it myself. I was going through a really tough time, and my best friend said, you need to focus on gratitude. And he challenged me to do a gratitude journal every night for 30 days. And it was just such a fundamental change, so powerful.
And if you miss a day, that's not an excuse to stop. You just keep going.
Right. Yes, exactly. That's the law of momentum, right? You can't let that little incompletion stop you. Every incompletion drains your energy. So you got to just get right back to it. And I tell people when I work with people for weight loss, they're like, well, I messed up on my diet, so Monday I'll get back on it. I'm like, no, not Monday. Get back on it right now. Well, I'm not going to eat until tomorrow. Doesn't matter. Don't wait till tomorrow. Mentally, you're back on it right now. Right. Because that little incompletion can really snowball if you allow it to. So
yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. So Carolyn, if people want to connect with you, follow you, maybe even work with you one-on-one, what is the best way that they can do that?
So I have a website. It's my name, Carolyn Kahn. So it's carolynkahn.com. And if there's a concern or question,
Uh-oh. I think we might have lost your sound there for a second. Can you hear me, Carolyn? Hopefully everyone can hear you. So again, that's carolynkahn.com. Kahn is spelled C-A-H-N. So Carolyn, thank you so much.
thank you very much.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you again. Great. So if people want to work with you one-on-one, explain, we got about 30 seconds, how you help people.
Okay, so I will help you with getting rid of whatever's stopping you from moving forward. If you have some negative emotions that are attached to a memory, we can get rid of those and you can move on with life, because your memories will always be there, but you shouldn't have negative emotions attached to those memories.
I love it. You know, there have been so many studies of even people who went through like Vietnam, and they've got these just horrific memories. And people think, well, that memory is always going to be there. The memory doesn't disappear after they release it. The memory is there, but most people just describe, well, it's just like I'm watching a movie. It's not like I'm there anymore. And yeah, you can have freedom from any of those things that have plagued you in the past. So thank you so much, Carolyn. It has been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. And next, I'm excited to bring on our next author as we keep trucking along. Our next author is Brandy Lovingear. And Brandy, hi. Brandy is a board-certified hypnotherapist and success and life coach with over 7 years of experience. She empowers women, children, and animals to overcome life's challenges by releasing stuck emotions and negative thoughts. As a double certified Reiki master trainer, Brandy specializes in energy healing, helping clients achieve inner peace and emotional resilience. Her holistic approach inspires individuals to find balance and fulfillment in their lives. In her chapter, which is called It's Your Choice, Brandy emphasizes the power of personal coaching in overcoming negative self-talk and external influences. She encourages readers to shift their mindset from victimhood to empowerment, to face challenges head-on, and to embrace personal growth. Her chapter highlights the importance of setting boundaries, maintaining a positive mindset, and fostering self-compassion and gratitude. And by focusing on personal success in various aspects in life, Brandy guides readers to reclaim their power, connect with their true selves, and live a loving, fulfilling, and balanced life. So welcome, Brandy.
Hi, thank you.
Really
I'm
excited
happy
to
to
have
be
you.
here.
Thank you. So let's start off with, tell us what inspired you to join this book and to write your chapter.
I felt this was such a great opportunity. It's Your Choice comes from things that I had to do in my life to move forward, things that I did for myself, things that I did for myself. And this is the opportunity to be able to help others do that as well. I was born to somebody who told me repetitively, you're a mistake. You're never going to amount to anything. If it wasn't for you, life would be better. And it just continued on and on and on for a very long time. I didn't create the negative self-talk, but I chose to believe it. And I took myself down a horrible, awful, elongated, unnecessary road of drugs and alcohol. And the mindset is, it can make you or break you. And it almost took me out. Honestly, I almost took myself out of the game of life because I believed it.
That's rough. To get to the point where you feel like that's the only choice or the right choice. That is such a tough place to be. In your chapter, you talk about the importance of shifting. See, most people, when something happens to them, they go, well, I'm a victim, and they think they're a victim for the rest of their life. But you talk about the importance of shifting from victim mindset to empowered mindset. Can you share why that's so important?
Well, living in effect and living in cause are two different things. There's a lot of people that go through life and they'll say, oh, this happened to me, so therefore, or I can't trust this person because this person lied to me, and they're living in effect. What I was living in when I was going through it, I call infect. I allowed myself to be infected, and I almost allowed those things that were said to be true. When you move to cause, it's where you're in a result mindset. Yes, these horrible things happen. They suck. Events happen that are horrible for all of us. It's a part of life. The question is, what do you want to do about it? You can sit there and fight for your limiting beliefs and your limitations, or you can say, okay, what can I do? And I currently, in this phase of my life at almost 50, I say that now when things happen. Okay, I can't control this. I can't control this toxic situation or this person or this event, but what can I do to make it healthy and better for myself? And that alone can empower you and set you above the scale of where you were before, because you don't have to live in this place of this happened to me and it's so negative and I can't move on, because that's not true.
Right. I love it. You talk a lot about in your chapter about setting healthy boundaries, something that I think not many people are very educated in. So what advice can you give people to start identifying and where they need healthy boundaries and then implementing those boundaries in their daily lives?
Right. For me, I'm an empath and an HSP, so it's a blessing and a curse. I get overwhelmed by a lot of energy easily, and I need to take breaks. I think knowing yourself and where you're at, or if energy vampires, heard of those, or situations or toxic people, know your environment, know what you're putting yourself into, and it's okay to not want to be in that, and choose to put yourself in a safe space and move towards that. And if you're dealing with a toxic person, you absolutely have every right to set your boundary and set it compassionately. I've learned the hard way. I would allow my stuff to create anger in me, and I would lead off of that anger. And I still struggle with that, to be honest. I struggle without leading with anger. But you can set a compassionate boundary that says, hey, this really doesn't work for me. And you can even make a condition like, hey, if this is going to continue, this is what I'm going to end up doing, because this doesn't work for me. And it doesn't mean you're making threats. It doesn't mean you're being mean. You're just being kind to yourself and protecting yourself.
Yeah. How does someone know if they're in a toxic relationship? I mean, sometimes the evidence isn't always so clear.
Even when things aren't said, I feel it because I'm empathic. But body language, words, you know, if you're around someone that it doesn't feel good. If it doesn't feel good, it's not good for you. And what can you do about it? You know, distance yourself a little bit here. I deal with this presently, actually. I have some people in my husband's life that are pretty nasty towards me. And I know that's not my stuff. That's not my stuff. If I could allow it, or if I would allow it, I totally could let that take control of me, make me angry. But what I am going to do, what can I do? I'm going to stay away from that. I'm going to stay away from that person. I'm going to stay away from those things. That's not my stuff. So I'm not going to take that on. Maybe that will help people.
Yeah. And the thing I think that too many people just don't recognize is your feelings are the truth for you. Right. Because sometimes people get caught up in, well, what if I'm wrong? What if they're not toxic and it's just me and I'm making things up? If you're around a person and you don't feel good around that person, that is your personal truth. And right. That's not to say that you can blame the other person or do something to the other person, but like you said, you can control your interaction with people. Right.
Right.
You know,
and it's sorry.
Go ahead.
And it's different internal representation. That person, they have a completely different internal representation and experience that equals their reality from your representation, and your experience that equals your reality. And it just might not be a match. It doesn't mean, you know, you have to be rude and angry and oh, this person's so terrible. You're just different and not a match, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, and I don't think we're meant to be a match for every single person in the world. And you know, like you, I've had toxic family members, and I just limit my experience with them. I don't feel like I even need to communicate to them that I feel they're toxic, because you know that discussion is not going to be fruitful at all. So I just limit my time with them. So the concept of self-compassion you talk about in your chapter and gratitude, that plays a significant role in your chapter. So could you elaborate on particularly self-compassion, how those practices contribute to your growth and transformation and how they can help our readers?
Sure. Self-compassion, when you're going through something, we're all human. Coaches need coaches, therapists need therapists, and energy workers have energy work done to them. We're all human. We're not always going to be our 100% best selves. And when you do something or you say something or things don't go as you planned, you can say, okay, dang it, I could have done better, and learn from that and give yourself grace to move forward and just learn and continue on. I think when we beat ourselves up too much and live in this place of, oh, I suck, or, oh, I didn't do that right. Going into that, I have a best friend and she'll say, oh, I'm so stupid. And I'll look at her and say, hey, don't talk about my best friend like that. So we tend to, oh, I didn't do that right, so I'm so stupid, or I'm so dumb. And it's like, no, you're human. It's okay. And go forward, learning and doing things differently.
Yeah, we're allowed to give ourselves grace.
Yeah.
And too many people don't do that. So you mentioned in your chapter the difference, I love this distinction, the difference between running away from something bad versus running towards something that's safer and healthier. Most people would say, well, either way, you're running in the same direction. What's the difference? Right.
So when you're running away from something, this is actually what I did from my past when I was younger. The negativity that was going on there and the hurt that was going on there, I just wanted away from it. I didn't deal with it in a healthy manner. I just wanted away from it. And then I, self-medicated. Being older and have learned a lot of things, when something is not good for you, like we were talking about earlier, a toxic situation, and you can keep trying and you say, okay, let's continue to put the best foot forward. If you're continuing to put your best foot forward and you're continuing to do it and your heart is in it and you're there and it's still not working out, then you're not moving away from something, you're moving towards a better avenue because that one isn't working. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I find most people in their lives are just running away from things, and then they wonder why they don't have what they want because they're not running toward what they want. It's such a good distinction. And I love to, in your chapter, you make a distinction between internal success and external success, right? Internal success in contrast to things like financial success and career success. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay, sure. So I was raised, my dad told me money is not the most important thing. I know you need money to survive, but for me personally, money isn't success. You need it to survive. I am somebody that cares about where I'm going in life, even at a very early age. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And I'm supposed to help people, right? But when you're figuring that out, my internal success for me personally is more important and far outranks money. And it's the character that I want to be, how I want to continue to grow. I'm never going to stop growing. I'm never going to stop reading. It's important to me. I care about how I raise my daughter and what I show her, and having that internal success. And I have to tell you, Michael, I feel like I've gained it. I'm not a millionaire, but from what I've come from and where I'm at, and from almost taking myself out of the game of life, I have a beautiful daughter. I have amazing, amazing friends. I love my friends so much. If I wouldn't have let go of that negativity and the toxicity and moved myself in the positive angle that I have, I wouldn't have this amazing support group around me. And as I continue down this path, even going to the IBCP convention, I am continuing to meet the most amazing and best people because of the internal success that I'm focused on.
I love it. So we are here today in support of our book launch, Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. And Brandy is one of our co-authors. And her chapter is called It's Your Choice. It's an amazing chapter, amazing story with great resources in it. You can get this book at innerrevolutionbook.com. We'll give you $1,000 in free gifts for buying it this weekend for helping us out. And Brandy, if people want to connect with you or follow you, maybe work with you one-on-one, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can find me at energyandsymmetry.com or message me straight at brandy@energysymmetry.com. I do one-on-one coaching, virtual as well. So just look me up and I'm there.
I love it. And what is it you specialize in? Like, who is it that you like to help, and how do you like to help people?
So I still use the modalities of energy work. I mix it with the neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy. I empower women, a lot of empathic women, to find their voice, set boundaries, remove energy blocks. It's a very beautiful process. I do a 90-minute intense 101, one-on-one, and then I also do a 90-day package where I meet with someone once a week for an hour.
I love it. And so our book, Inner Revolution, is on sale starting at midnight this morning. It went on sale. We are cooking up the charts. Currently, we're number 3 in neurolinguistic programming. We want to get to number 1, and you can help us out. Go to innerrevolutionbook.com. And again, if you get the book before 11:59 p.m. tomorrow, December 8th, then we've got $1,000 in free gifts. Brandy's created the gift. I've created the gift. All of us authors have put these valuable gifts together as a bribe and a thank you to help us achieve number 1 bestseller this weekend. And so thank you so much, Brandy. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Now I'm excited to bring our next author on, which is Michael Roth.
Hi.
Hi. Michael is a holistic addiction and wellness specialist and a life coach with over 40 years of experience focusing on breaking free from trauma and addictions. He utilizes a holistic approach, emphasizing the mind-body connection. I love that. Working globally via online methods to offer hope and transformation. Inspired by his own journey through addiction, Michael channels empathy and understanding into his practice. His methods empower individuals to reclaim their lives and overcome addiction. His chapter is called Breaking the Chains from Trauma to Transformation. And Michael explores the profound impact of trauma on individuals and outlines his 2-step approach to healing. He uses techniques such as neurolinguistic programming, EFT, and somatic experiencing, and helps reset the nervous system to fill a void left by trauma with confidence and leadership skills. Michael emphasizes the importance of addressing both the mind and the body to achieve comprehensive recovery and to transform pain into purpose. His holistic methods empower trauma survivors not only to heal, but to inspire and guide others in their journey. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, thank you.
Great to have you here. So tell us what inspired you to join this book and to write your chapter?
I want to get the word out and share what I've learned in the last 40 years with people to take their healing to another level and to have them make a difference in their life, improve the quality of their life. And being in the book was a way that I thought would be a great vehicle to accomplish that.
I love it. You know, you've got 40 years of experience in this field. How has that changed in 40 years, like developing these techniques, and how's it different now than it was 40 years ago?
So 40 years ago, I would be referred to as like a witch or some sort of, I don't know what to call it, but a witch. And now the mind-body connection, muscle testing, NLP, it's way more accepted and common than when I started out 40 years ago.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's there, and I would say, especially in the early 80s, there was almost a rebound against NLP, because it was so effective, and I think it threatened a lot of people. So one of the things that I love is in your chapter, you talk about the importance of not just mindset, right? Of working with the mind, or like some people like to call it the brain, but actually working with the body as well. And especially when it comes to addictions, what is the connection of the body and the mind when it comes to overcoming addictions?
Wow, that's a great question. So ask the question one more time.
What is, so you talk about the importance, and like you look at most addictions counselors, right? Most addictions counselors just sit people in a circle and do old Virginia Satir style, talk about your problems, and hopefully they'll go away, right?
Exactly.
you're leveled up obviously in working with NLP and hypnotherapy and these kinds of tools, EFT, eye movement integration, but then you talk about the body part of it, that trauma and addiction aren't just in your mind, they're trapped in your body as well.
Exactly.
What's that distinction?
So most of the time, people who have some sort of addiction and underlying trauma, they're going to be more dominant in the sympathetic nervous system, the survival nervous system. And in doing the process and doing the work of having the clients release what I call the emotional charge on different events, when we're complete, when they've released it, then I encourage them to reset their body using Havening, using another process similar to bring the person into balance and more parasympathetic oriented, because that's where the healing takes place.
Yeah, I think a lot of times there are people who do the self-development work and then they're like, why am I still having this problem? I thought I released this,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And there's what I think is important research out of Germany over the last 30, 40 years that shows that, when we have these negative experiences, these negative emotions, they do get stored in the body. I mean, that's the whole theory behind acupuncture, acupressure, right? 5,000-year-old Chinese medicine that is proven to be true is that we get blockages in our body, and then those blockages tend to create more problems. And so, research out of Germany even suggests that that can create cancer and other kinds of diseases.
Hamer's work, exactly.
Yeah.
Conflicts in the body. Yeah.
Yeah. So explain to people, I think some people are familiar with doing the mind stuff, working with NLP or things like that. How do you work with the body when it comes to releasing things from the body?
Well, when I'm in person with a client, I'll use their muscle, and I do something called muscle response testing. So a person will make a statement or think about a person or a situation, and if the arm goes down or weakens, then that indicates to me that there's a incongruency and an emotional charge on whatever they're thinking about. And John Sarno and also Hamer, I mean, people who have low back issues, Sarno was a surgeon, and he realized that he wasn't getting people better. Once they released the anger from their back, if you will, their problems dissipated. And Hamer in Germany, the testicular cancer from his son, a healthy guy, and then one day has this cancer, and then he looked. There's always 99% to 100%. Somebody has some sort of stress or huge conflict. It has to manifest in the body because the mind and the body are one. There's a connection. They're not separate like it was 40 years ago.
Right. What would you say to people who go through a traumatic experience and then their thought is, I just need to get back to work. I just need to get into my art, or I just need to, maybe watch TV or whatever. Like there's this old notion that time heals all. What do you think of that?
I think there's different levels of healing. I mean, somebody loses a partner, they're under huge grief, and they're not ready to do the work. And then other people are ready to do the work. Where it gets interesting for me is those people who kind of move on without actually processing or integrating the trauma. It'll usually impacts an area of their life that's either not working or not working as well as they'd like it to. So that's, to me, is the advantage of actually doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked with a woman once who had, she'd come to me with a very unusual, I won't say what it is, but a very unusual physical problem. And she wanted me to work with her. And at first I was like, that's not my realm. I'm not going to work on that. And then, my good friend, Mark Usick, convinced me to work with her. It was a friend of his. And it turned out 20 years earlier, she'd had a traumatic experience. Yeah. She had zero clue that this physical manifestation 20 years later had anything to do with the traumatic experience 20 years earlier. And, we uncovered that through the process and then did the work on it. It's so powerful.
Ridiculously powerful. And if somebody comes in with a presenting complaint, whether it's a physical, I mean, back in the day when I was doing more of that, I would always ask the person, so before you develop the symptoms, what was going on in your life 3 months before that, 6 months, a week? And, most of the time, they'll be able to identify a specific situation or event.
Yeah.
Not everybody is connected that way, but usually when asked the question, they identify it. And then they have like an aha moment. Often.
Yeah, when I asked her the question, I said, well, what was going on in your life when the symptoms started? And she said, well, my mom just committed suicide.
Exactly.
And it was like such an offhanded, well, my mom just committed suicide. Like, that's not a big deal.
Exactly.
And I said to her, do you think that has anything to do with the situation you're in now? And she goes, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I know. That's,
the deflection, right? And she had never processed the grieving. She never cried when she walked in on her mom having committed suicide. And so,
I just want to add to what you just said. So in that situation, if somebody doesn't deal with it, as you know, a similar event will happen in the future and it'll trigger the old event, and then it's compounded the response.
Yeah, we will keep reliving out the same lesson until we learn it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way I think of it, right? So you better learn it fast. One of the things that you talk about in your chapter is really interesting, because most people, when they think about addiction, they think, okay, we're talking about alcohol, cocaine, heroin, meth. But you talk about things as addictions that a lot of people don't address. And I've known people who are addicted, for example, to gambling or to sex, or you can be addicted to almost anything. And very often they go into these 12-step circles and they feel like a fish out of water, because everybody's talking about alcohol or cocaine or something like that.
Right.
Address this idea of, what do you call them? Non-physical addictions?
Addictions is the actual phrase. Process addictions.
Talk about this, because I think everybody has them. We just don't know that they're addictions.
Exactly. So it's a behavior issue. So there are people that will compulsively shop online, compulsively shop, gamble, not only in Las Vegas or on the horses or games, but taking huge risks. Sex and love. At the end of the day, dopamine is released in the brain, and I say a person learns how to medicate and not feel the pain.
Yeah.
The problem is that it doesn't last. Whether you have a drink or you have an affair or gamble, it keeps escalating and keep feeding it, rather than addressing the trauma or traumas that have happened that led to the self-medication. Anyone with an addiction is in pain. I mean, that's not rocket science, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our main culprit right now, and people don't realize this, the dopamine, as you said, it's the drug dealer in our head. That main culprit right now is social media.
Yes.
It's a drugstore in your hand all day long, and I'm amazed at even seeing people who, they're supposed to be at work, but there they are posting on Facebook. They can't help it. And people driving down the street, it used to be texting while driving was the issue. And I think these days when you see people drive, they're driving like this, right? They're not texting anymore. If they're getting that dopamine hit from, they hear the Facebook notification, they hear TikTok go off or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a huge addiction these days. You use a word in your chapter that I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with: polyvagal nerve. Talk about that.
Yeah. In the world of trauma, I don't know how many years ago, but I think Stephen Porges came up with the polyvagal concept. And basically, at the end of the day, you're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's where healing is. And people that are in trauma are often in the sympathetic nervous system, the survival nervous system. So the polyvagal is kind of the name that's being used to stimulate the vagus nerve.
And what's the importance of the vagus nerve?
That's the main nerve for the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's where healing happens, parasympathetic. When we sleep, we're in parasympathetic. And when we're not and stressed out, we're sympathetic.
And it's amazing what can stimulate it. I mean, I've even heard things like, gag yourself with your toothbrush. That can reset your vagus nerve. Like, deep breathing, yelling, clinching. I mean, it's odd the things that work with it, but they can definitely stimulate it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, Michael, if people want to follow you, if they want to be connected with you, if they want to maybe work with you one-on-one for a real addiction or a physical addiction or a process addiction, or anything else that you work with, how can they get a hold of you?
So my email is holistictraumatransformation@gmail.com. Send me a note.
Yep.
And my website is holistictraumatransformation.com.
I love it. And do you work with anything other than addictions? Is there anything else that you specialize in?
Yes. So if you or someone you know creates goals and outcomes where a person thinks they're congruent with what they're creating, I work with people to help them identify if they have any blocks to actually achieving their outcomes and pointing out blind spots. I want to lose weight. I mean, you know about parts conflict. Lots of people want to lose weight, and then a part of them doesn't. So all tied in.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, it has been a real pleasure having you on here. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom in the book. Again, the book is called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. You can get the book at innerrevolutionbook.com. And if you buy it before tomorrow, December 8th at midnight, we're going to give you $1,000 in valuable gifts, right? Michael has created a gift. I've created a gift. I've got a 2-hour course that I've created. All kinds of great gifts, including courses, audio programs, ebooks, hypnosis recordings, all kinds of wonderful stuff in there for helping support us during the launch. So thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. And our last author for the day, last but certainly not least, I'm very excited to introduce you to Dawn Aldridge. Dawn is a peak performance coach specializing in helping athletes and professionals develop their best through flow mastery. She combines high-intensity workouts with growth mindset principles and neurolinguistic programming to enhance neurochemical states, promoting quick progress toward goals. She also leads workshops on NLP, rapid transformational therapy, life force energy healing, equipping participants to become their own growth mindset coaches. She holds multiple certifications, including NLP trainer, clinical hypnotherapy, and CrossFit Level 1 coach. Her chapter is called Embracing Growth Over Perfection. And Dawn shares her personal journey from being overwhelmed by perfectionism to adopting a growth mindset. She recounts her struggles with self-doubt and performance anxiety, rooted in childhood experiences of high expectation and micromanagement. And then through discovering the growth mindset and engaging in fitness and self-improvement, the practices that she does, Dawn learned to appreciate effort over results and validate her own progress. Her transformation involves overcoming self-sabotage, embracing intrinsic motivation, and finding genuine confidence in her abilities. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So tell us what inspired you to join this book and to write your chapter.
Well, the name of my chapter, I actually changed it at the last minute, like 15 times, and it is called The Victorious Secret Sauce.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, that's okay. That's correct. You don't have to be perfect. What inspired me was about a year ago, I moved to a new home with the intention of writing an entire book to tell my story. And I found myself stuck and unable to take action. And when I saw your little Instagram post floating by my feed, it said innerrevolution.com. And I thought to myself, this must be a synchronicity, because a post that I had made on Instagram a couple months prior to that was on that double under skill that I ended up writing about, that turns around stuckness.
I love it.
Yeah. So I wanted to make this something was going on where I was unable to digest this entire piece. So I figured if this must be my moment. And if I break it down to just this 10 pages, somehow I got to be able to get this one. And once I get the first one, just like that double under skill that I wrote about, the exercise skill, then that's going to be, I'll be able to get the momentum going.
I love it. So in your chapter, you talk about your early experiences with perfectionism, which I think is something that so many of us are afflicted with, and how, the pressure from perfectionism influences your journey toward embracing a growth mindset. How did that shift happen?
Which shift? The shift towards embracing the growth mindset?
Yes.
Well, interestingly, I had a growth mindset to an extent with regard to wealth. For some reason, I just always did. Yet in other ways, I had a very fixed and limited all or nothing mindset with regard to my body. And I didn't really realize anything was wrong until I unraveled this. When I began the growth, to embrace the growth mindset, it was through a gym that I started to go to called CrossFit. And that was really new to me because what was new to me was the growth mindset. Because what was going on there was, rather than my extraordinary performances receiving 1 million gold stars, all of a sudden this guy is congratulating me for my little tiny, seemingly insignificant effort in trying. And this was, I didn't realize it at the time because I was not an NLP trainer. I knew nothing about the subconscious mind. Yet apparently this was sinking down deep into my mind, and I was becoming way more motivated. I was falling in love with this fitness, and I was falling in love with it for more than just the way I looked in the mirror. That's when it began.
Yeah. It's so, I love what you talk about because, at some point in the 20th century, schools moved to letter grade systems. And, this whole idea that your grade that you got when you came home dictated your value, really. And at least that's how it was in my house. And I know a lot of other people, if you brought home, like I did, a lot of D's and F's, you were a bad kid. But even sometimes, like if I came home with even though my grade point average was probably like a C- most of the time, if I came home with a B, it was always, why didn't you get an A? Right. And never rewarding the effort, but rewarding the outcome. And so that's something you talk about a lot in your chapter. Talk about the importance of that.
Yeah. And I must say, Michael, that you are an enormous inspiration with that, because I recall you talking about being a C student through your courses. And shockingly, it turns out that many times it's that C student that is the one that succeeds at the highest level. So what happens is when we are only reinforced for our extraordinary A+, and that wires limits into our mindset. The limits are also tied to our self-worth, our achievements, our appearance, our popularity, these things outside of us. When they are reinforced, they become our main motivator. And as a result, our true self, which is the passing C of the ordinary effort and the trying. When we are children, we are told, oh, you're just a C student. So as children, we experience cognitive dissonance because it makes no sense. Okay, so I learned the material, yet you're shaming me for being a passing C. This guy got an extraordinary A+, and he memorized the material. He didn't actually learn it. So, yeah. And so in order to embrace a growth mindset, we actually have to go back and undo that learning and start validating the passing C level effort and the trying in regard to the areas of, if we're in fitness, if we want to let go or free ourselves from excess body weight, the first step is acceptance as our passing C self, the way we are, and then we can step into that extraordinary with no need for it. And this is the same underlying method for wealth. We have to be grateful for what we have now. I have to be grateful for driving a 2018 Honda Civic. And once I am immensely grateful for my 2018 Honda Civic, I am allowing the energy to flow for a higher level of wealth without
Right.
any attachment.
Right. I love it. And I'll tell you from personal experience and personal story that a consistent C student will always outperform an occasional A student.
I believe that. I do believe that.
And you see that, by the way, in, you look at the list of billionaires in the United States. Many of them did not get good grades in school. 60% of them don't have a formal education or dropped out. And but people think, oh, those people have that degree and they've got, these advantages, but most of them are hustlers, right? And I don't mean hustler in terms of scamming people. I mean, they hustle. They work their butts off to achieve what they've got, even if they're maybe C students,
Right.
Yeah. And there's a large correlation too with, billionaires and highly successful people to being on the spectrum and right brain disorders, dyslexia and ADD and ADHD and things like that. So you can't count out those C students.
Yeah, and there was another thing I would love to add now that you're mentioning this. When we place all of our focus on results, as a peak performance coach, I help people manage energy through NLP and RTT to blast through blocks because we want that energy to flow. When we focus only on results, let's say if it's with taking a test, writing this chapter, letting go of excess body weight, we actually align with resistance. And when we align with resistance, that's the opposite of flow. So we want to make sure that we are that passing C student on a marathon of validating our effort and our trying. And that keeps us in flow. This way we could get all of our learnings. Everything's a learning.
I love it. One of the things you talk about in your chapter is a language shift. And a lot of times I don't think people realize the power of language shifts. Changing your language can literally change your reality. And you talked about changing your language from I can't do it to I haven't done it yet. So explain to our viewers and readers how powerful that shift is and what the difference is.
Right. So when we say I can't, that's definitive. That places limits. I can't. That's a fixed mindset phrase. And when we add yet, it opens the energy. So I can't yet. That's how our subconscious mind understands it. Additionally, what I write about was saying the word must. I didn't realize I kept saying I must learn this double under. Otherwise, I'll never be good enough to be this CrossFit coach. Well, when I was saying I must, it was literally placing me in a state of force. And in a state of force, as you notice what I wrote in the chapter is, that would throw me right into this quit and submit where I was unable to take any action. So I kid you not, it was a matter of upgrading my inner dialogue consciously to say, I am so excited about practicing that double under today. I love it. I'm so excited about this. And that hooked me right into flow with many other things, not just that worked with this chapter, worked with that double under. Yeah. So yes, inner dialogue.
So a couple of times you've mentioned double under, and as we know, most people don't have the book yet because they're just ordering it now. So explain what a double under is and why you keep referencing it.
Okay, so the double under is a jump rope exercise where the rope spins twice, and I learned it through a fitness modality called CrossFit. It takes practice to learn the skill. So I actually had to create a system where I would show up every day and practice for a certain amount of time, good enough, no matter how ugly it happened, and allow it to unfold with several different rules of the mind using NLP. We don't have enough time to go into the complete details of that. And I was able to use this fitness skill along with mindset to rewire my brain towards massive motivation.
I love it. I've been an NLP for certified for many years now, and I've taught goal setting. That's a central part of NLP is how to achieve goals. And one of the things that I've started emphasizing recently is that experience is not for winning. Action is not for winning necessarily. Action is for experience. You look at the people who win the most consistently, they're not taking action to win. They're taking action for the experience of doing it. And because they're doing that, they just get better and better and better at it. Whereas when people take action to win and they don't win, they give up. Right? Talk about that.
Exactly. So writing this chapter, another main motivator for me to write this was because of the person I had to become and the performance anxiety I had to get over as it all rose back up again with writing this chapter. That is a major motivator for why I did it. And now as a result of the person I have become from doing this, I can go to the next level. And that's the exact same thing with the other skills. I never anymore, I rarely anymore take action for results. Results do not work out well. Focusing on results, I focus on the effort, the journey.
It's all about experience. Yeah. It's the journey, the experience. I love it. So we're here today supporting our book launch, Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. And Dawn is a co-author as well as myself and the other co-authors that you've met so far. Buy this book today or tomorrow by 11:59 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, and we'll give you $1,000 in valuable gifts. That includes courses, audio programs, ebooks, hypnosis recordings. Every author has contributed to these launch gifts. They're only available during the launch. And if you help us get to #1 on Amazon, or at least help us get that experience of moving toward it, then we're going to give you $1,000 in gifts. So, Dawn, how do people get in touch with you if they want to follow you or connect with you or work with you?
If they want to follow me or work with me or connect with me, they could text me or call me at 908-380-0308. Or you can find me at dawn.aldredge1@gmail.com.
Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And let's get to #1. Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.
All right. And as we close out the first day, this is our first half of the authors that we have met today. Remember that tomorrow we meet the other half of our authors, starting again at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And where'd my browser go? 9 a.m. Pacific time. Well, and I can't find my browser. And we're going to interview the second half of the authors. Now, I was going to try to share my screen and see if we could check on Amazon and see how we're doing. If you want to get the book, by the way, then go to innerrevolutionbook.com. Innerrevolutionbook.com. There's my screen. Yay. And what will happen is you'll come to this website, this beautifully designed website by our designer, Hope. And the book is called Inner Revolution, Embracing Change to Achieve Greatness. You can read about the book here. Most important thing, click that green button. That's going to take you to a simple 3-step process. We're going to show you where to go buy the book and show you what to do after you buy the book so that you can get the $1,000 in gifts. Here's the cool thing. It's actually more than $1,000 in gifts, because our launch gifts that we're putting together, that we have put together to help to thank you for helping us during the launch to get this book to #1, that's worth $1,000. But also inside the book, every single chapter in the author's bio has another gift that's also valued at $50 per author. So that's over $1,000 in gifts, in chapter gifts as well. So technically, if you buy during the launch, you're going to get $2,000 worth of gifts, which is amazing. And these are, by the way, these are not cheap gifts. Like, we've put our hearts and souls. I put together a full 2-hour course on how to get out of your comfort zone, right? Because the comfort zone is what holds you back. Everything that you want in your life that you don't yet have lies outside of your comfort zone, but most people are afraid to get out of their comfort zone. So I put a 2-hour course together teaching you how to get out of your comfort zone, how to overcome limiting beliefs that keep you in your comfort zone, and a step-by-step process for releasing those beliefs. I documented the 60 most prevalent beliefs, most common beliefs that keep people from taking action. This is a course that if I were to put it out, I'd charge $150 or $200 for. You're going to get it for free, just for $6.89, which is what the cost of the book is. And you're going to get all of the other authors' gifts, as well as all the chapter gifts as well. So it's really $2,000 worth of gifts. But hey, I mean, the book itself is worth $6.89. So the gifts are just the gravy, right? They're the icing on the cake. The way to get it is to go to innerrevolutionbook.com. You have to go through our website if you want to get the gifts. That's the way you got to do it. So go to innerrevolution.com, innerrevolutionbook.com. And you will buy it through Amazon, but there are some specific instructions and steps in order to get the gifts. So I'm going to switch over here really quick, and we're going to check on Amazon and see where we're at right now. Last time I looked, we were number 3 in neurolinguistic programming. Sometimes it takes hours for this to refresh. We'll see. Yep, we're still number 3. We're number 109 in motivation. So we're almost bestsellers in motivation, just 10 more spots to go. And we're number 123 in success and self-help. We are just getting started. We need your help, right? People got to buy books in order for a book to become number 1. And so that's why we lowered it to the lowest price it can possibly go. We don't make any money off the book, right? Only Amazon makes money on the book. But we did that to incentivize you, right? We don't want price to be the reason why somebody doesn't get it. And hey, look at that. We're so far right now, we're the number 1 new release in neurolinguistic programming. That's not number 1 bestseller yet. We're still 2 spots away from that, but we are the number 1 new release in the category of NLP, which is just the hot new releases. So thank you for getting us there. We got a ways to go. And we got, a whole day and a half left in our launch party. So head on over to innerrevolutionbook.com. Grab your copy. We will send you $1,000 in thank you gifts just for helping us out during this weekend. And other than that, that's all we got for today. Tomorrow, we will be starting 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, and we'll go through the rest of the authors. We have 12 authors tomorrow because one of the chapters was co-written by a couple, Nadira and Troy. And so keep your eye out. Come and join us live and help us out during the launch. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Hakalau. Bye.